Chapter 451. First kill. And it was an undeniable first kill. In an instant, everyone felt like they were going crazy. F***ck, 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 my health bar is going to be empty because of Big Spade's handsomeness. He raised his long sword and crossed the tower to kill. Who else could it be other than me, Big Spade? Wait a minute, I can't waver. I'm here for Almighty Chin, not for Big Spade. I can't be a fan just like this. But this scene was too shocking. From fingers to hair, they felt numb. The Yunzhong team's members were stunned. Their mouths were wide open, and they couldn't close them. The roar of support was so loud that it almost tore the roof off. Everyone was shouting, "First kill! First kill!" The commentator, who had just predicted that Spade Z wouldn't survive this match, was as embarrassed as he could be. Commentator Zhang laughed at the side. "Old Jiang, the situation is far from what you said." Old Jiang didn't say anything, because he realized that no matter what he said, it didn't seem right. When it came to shock, no one felt it more than Ling Xiao himself. He just sat there, looking at his black screen, and he couldn't believe that he had died just like that. And he was killed by the toy he looked down on the most. But it was obvious that Fu Jiu didn't want to give the opponent any chance to react. She used the time difference of Ling Xiao's death to control the game character to attack the opponent's third defense tower with one hand, and with the other hand on the keyboard, she said a few words, "I not only know how to dodge, but I also know how to kill." This was a reply to the Yunzhong team, and it was also a slap to the commentator's face. There was no euphemism. To be honest, old Zhang's face was really colorful, and it made people want to laugh. But the fans' attention wasn't completely focused on this, because in that short period of time, the Yunzhong team's third defense tower also fell. Only then did Ling Xiao realize that he had been wrong from the beginning. The opponent wasn't dodging at all. Instead, everything was aimed at pushing down the tower. At that moment, Ling Xiao's face turned very ugly. He thought that he had only died once. He wanted to save the situation, but he realized that he couldn't. Not only that. At this moment, Spade Z's playing style was completely different from before. Spade Z had been hiding all this time. Right now, the youth was like an ice-plated sword, carrying a kind of light that could sweep away 1,000 armies. At that moment, everyone realized that this was a true head-on confrontation. Spade Z. The Spade Z that everyone knew. He was back. He no longer needed to worry about anything else. He only needed to kill. In front of the camera, the youngster was moving the mouse. As the silver hair fell, the familiar sound effect once again rang out in the esports arena. Ling Xiao's body fell heavily onto the ground. There was no longer any obstruction. Fu Jiu leaped over and didn't give Ling Xiao a chance to revive for the third time. She directly attacked the enemy's city. Complete victory. When these two words were displayed on the screen, they emitted a unique golden light. This time, it wasn't just the shoutcaster, even Lin Feng was dumbfounded. W1? Wasn't this too fast? No one knew why, but at that moment, there was a deathly silence. Everyone froze as if a spell had been cast on them. And the youngster, who had done all this, just tilted his head, took off his headphones, and walked towards Qin Mo. With a serious expression, he only said one sentence, "This person, I really just casually confessed." Chapter 452. Now was not the time to talk about this. Lin Feng really wanted to see what was in Little Spade's head. Fu Jiu didn't care what other people thought of her. She was trying to get rid of the awkwardness between her and the Almighty. Qin Mo listened to the youngster's words and leaned back in his chair. His long legs crossed casually. When he looked at Fu Jiu, his thin lips curled up, and there was a smile in his eyes that looked like the first melting of ice and snow. This smile didn't matter. It was captured by the camera and put on the big screen, and it was a stunning beauty. Fu Jiu felt that this almighty should really be kept at home. Otherwise, if he was allowed to smile freely, many people would be drunk to death. Unfortunately, she didn't have enough money right now. Even if she had enough money, she still had to think about a lot of things. For example, would the Almighty be willing to let her raise him? Qin Mo looked at the youngster, and the corner of his mouth curled up carelessly. I know. As soon as he said those 3 words, he reached out and rubbed the youngster's fluffy head. His side profile was indescribably handsome. Well played. She was praised again. Fu Jiu was very happy. The most happy thing was that the awkwardness was gone. This scene was very eye-catching at the scene. Especially in the eyes of the CP fans, it was no different from giving out candy. Let me calm down first. When did the Almighty ever look at someone with such a gentle gaze? What's going on? He turned into a protective demon when facing Spade Z. I just want to say that these 2 people are in the same frame again. They are so handsome. Giving out candy as if no one else is around. I only admire the Almighty. Those 2 people were indeed so handsome that it was hard to ignore them. Even if Qin Mo was just sitting there, the youngster standing in front of him was an indescribable picture. If one had to describe it, there was only one word: pleasing to the eye. It was because there was too much attention on this side. Therefore, no one noticed that there was an additional beauty in the audience. That beauty was wearing a branded coat, and her face was covered by the collar. But from the curve of her chin, it wasn't hard to see that it was a very beautiful face. But now the beauty was so shocked that she had to lower her voice and ask Manager Li, who was behind her, "Is that still my son, your young master?" Manager Li, it was no wonder that Madam would ask such a question. Young master had never been so intimate with anyone before. It was hard to imagine that one day, the man who was always calm and indifferent would touch someone else's head. This, indeed, didn't seem like it. So that kid is Spade Z. Like a fangirl, the beauty smiled and said, "He's really handsome. He doesn't lose to my son at all. As expected of the god who brought me up." Manager Li coughed lightly. "Madam, I think about your request to meet Spade Z. Looks like he's leaving." Before Manager Li could finish, the beautiful woman interrupted him with an elegant voice, "Strange, the competition isn't over yet. Where is that kid going?" Manager Li looked up and almost met young master's gaze. He immediately lowered his eyes. However, he had a guilty conscience. Young master usually just casually glanced at him. "He probably went to the toilet," Manager Li said implicitly. The beauty smiled, "Is that so?" In other words, the chance for a chance encounter has come. Chapter 453. Fu Jiu didn't know that she was being watched. She only looked at the Yunzhong team with the corner of her eyes. Then it was the 2v2. The Yunzhong team's members all held back their anger. "Captain, don't worry, we will definitely get back your face." This was said by the team member who looked down on Lin Feng before. Lin Feng and north of Yin Mountain, one of them is old, and the other was defeated by me. I will win back all the blows Yunzhong team suffered just now. Lin Zhao's eyes darkened, and he calmed himself down. He didn't forget that he was also the captain of the Yunzhong team. He said in a low voice, "Pay attention to their movements, don't let them steal the turret. When 2 people are fighting, pay attention to the bushes." That person nodded and looked at his teammate again. The 2 of them went to the battlefield together, and when they met Lin Feng, they were obviously disdainful. After the commentator with the surname Jiang saw this, he seemed to regain some of his aura and immediately said, "Yunzhong underestimated his opponent in the first match, otherwise Spade Z wouldn't have won so quickly. I hope Yunzhong can be serious in the second match." This sentence seemed to be criticizing the Yunzhong team's carelessness, but in fact, it was nothing more than saying that Spade Z was lucky to win this time. He said that after being slapped in the face. Spade Z's fans really wanted to laugh at this commentator's face. However, Lin Feng really didn't expect that his partner would be north of Yin Mountain. After all, he wasn't fighting alone, he was always with Yunhu. They had never been separated. Thinking of this, he turned back to look at the guy who had been with him since he wore diapers, and he felt inexplicably uncomfortable. After Yun-Hu saw that look, he paused for a moment and then walked over. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows and wanted to ask what he was doing. But he saw that person look down. He was wearing a black wristband on his left hand, and his voice was low and deep, accompanied by the piece of time. Protect your opponent and win well. Yun-Hu's words were like his personality, always concise and to the point. Lin Feng understood the comfort in his words, and he curled his lips into a smile. Don't worry, I will definitely get you an MVP, so I will have more trophies than you. Yun-Hu watched the smile on this fellow's face. He really wanted to tell him that he could give him the trophies if he wanted. However, in order to prevent this person from being too arrogant, he just let him sit in front of the computer and didn't say anything more. But this was the scene. It still made people feel the beauty of accompanying each other since they were young. That was why there was a saying in the esports circle. Only when he saw the two of them would he believe that they were childhood friends. It had nothing to do with love. Instead, it was our common perseverance along the way. Lin Feng lifted his eyes and glanced at Supreme Alliance's preparation area. No one could accompany someone for a lifetime. If possible. At the very least, he gave Yun Dahu a youth without regrets. Last year, it was because of him that they didn't enter the national qualifier. This year, he had to win. In fact, seeing this, Fu Jiu was no longer worried, so she stood up. Where to? As soon as the youngster moved, Almighty Qin's face turned towards him. Fu Jiu lowered her voice. By some, I'm thirsty. Little Spade, aren't you going to continue watching? There's nothing to see. Ah. Because Lin Feng will win. Chapter 454. Fu Jiu was so sure that she wouldn't lose this match. Without even looking, she put one hand in her pocket and walked to the side exit. Her teammates were still looking at the youngsters back in a daze. Then, they turned their eyes back to the screen where the match was going on. For some reason, when Little Spade was talking, he thought of his captain's words, "Trust your teammates on the battlefield." These two people seemed to be surprisingly similar in some ways. Fu Jiu didn't think too much about it. She was really thirsty. She walked to the vending machine and felt in her pocket. She didn't have enough coins, so she only had one lollipop left. She opened it with narrowed eyes and held it in her mouth. What would it feel like to be so poor that you couldn't even afford a cold bottle? However, Fu Jiu had her own ways to deal with this vending machine. She just put one hand in her pocket, bent her waist slightly, and moved her fingers under the vending machine. There was a smacking sound. Coke was selected, and a bottle jumped out automatically. Fu Jiu picked it up with a smile. Just as she was about to open it, she heard a very pleasant female voice behind her. So you can buy things like this. Fu Jiu's fingers paused. She didn't feel embarrassed at all for being caught. She turned around and smiled. I can't help it. I'm too poor. Manager Li. Did you forget that you used 100 yuan to buy a fried skewer? Young Master Fu. It had to be said that Fu Jiu was too rowdy, and many people had seen her behavior as a nouveau riche. Manager Li was one of them. When he saw this kid throwing money around, he felt that this kid couldn't speak. Compared to others' contempt for Fu Jiu, he felt more pity. If a person only relied on throwing money around to get a sense of existence, did this kid really need someone to care about him? But, looking at the youngster who said that he was poor, he didn't look like he needed anyone's care at all. Instead, he was handsome from the inside out. Manager Li thought that it was no wonder that young master became good friends with him. If this was the old young master Fu, young master probably wouldn't have liked him. Fu Jiu was a smart person. She could tell that these two people were either rich or respectable, especially the madam who had just asked her. Elegant, beautiful, and most importantly, she looked good when she smiled. She gave people a comfortable sense of beauty. And she was the kind of person who would look fashionable no matter what she wore. He was an outstanding person. It was said that the eyes were the worst at lying. Fu Jiu also believed this. But why did this beauty keep staring at her and drinking Coke? It couldn't be because she was too handsome, right? Fu Jiu stopped and looked over with her black and white eyes. The movie queen smiled with charming dimples on both sides of her thin lips. Ah, did you notice that I was looking at you? Fu Jiu. Madam, because it's too obvious, I really can't choose to ignore it. The movie queen smiled even more beautifully. Child, I didn't expect you to be even more handsome up close. I'm your fan, can we take a picture together? Fans? No way, she had always thought that her fans were all young. Fu Jiu turned her arm sideways, wiped her lips with her sleeve, and coughed lightly. Her first reaction was, Madam, I'm sorry, did you get the wrong person? Chapter 455. Fu Jiu paused. Was he really her fan? Spade fan? The movie queen probably noticed the young man's raised eyebrows, so she took out her phone. Look, I'm playing hero too. You carried me in the game and I became a fan. But when I add you, you always fail. It makes me sad. Is it because I'm too bad that you don't add me? The movie queen's acting skills were top-notch. At the end of her speech, her beautiful eyes were filled with tears, and even Fu Jiu couldn't bear to look at her. Well, I'm just not used to adding other people as friends. This was the first time Fu Jiu was explaining this to someone, so she stuttered. Sigh, so embarrassing. The movie queen was still resentful. Then let's take a photo together. Between playing games and taking a picture, Fu Jiu chose the former. I'll play games with you again. She was really not used to taking pictures with other people, except with the Almighty. Do you want to play now? The movie queen looked very excited. Manager Li coughed loudly behind her. He wanted to remind Madam why they were looking for the young man. It was all for young master. But it was obvious that the movie queen had long forgotten about it. As a hero player who had just entered the Dao, it was a very happy thing to be able to fight with Spade Z again. The movie queen was about to agree. Manager Li had no choice but to say, Madam, this gentleman should still be in the middle of the competition. It's not good for you to play games with him now, right? Aren't people competing in the 2v2? The movie queen didn't understand this, so she politely asked for the youngster's opinion. You don't have to go back and watch, right? Fu Jiu took out her phone and smiled. No need. With Captain here, we will win. Captain. She finally mentioned her son. The corners of the movie queen's mouth curled up slightly. You seem to trust your captain a lot. Fu Jiu threw away the empty can of Coke and looked back with a smile. Almighty Qin is very powerful, and he is also very gentle. The movie queen really couldn't see how her son was gentle. However, which mother didn't like others to praise her son? She couldn't help but have a better impression of the young man in front of her. Let's sit there, it'll be more convenient for us to play games. Fu Jiu pointed at the resting area. The movie queen immediately agreed. Okay. When she logged into the game, the smile on her lips never stopped. Manager Li. Madam, please wake up. You said you were here to test young master's friend. You really didn't come here to play games with him. But it was obvious that the movie queen's focus was no longer on that. She stared at her phone screen very seriously. Her elegance was still there, but her expression was rather serious. In a while, just follow behind me. Don't cross the tower to kill anyone. I'll fight in the front, and you'll be the last one. That way, you'll get the kill count, Fu Jiu instructed the person beside her as she manipulated the game character. The movie queen's impression of the youngster increased once again. No wonder her indifferent son treated the person in front of her differently and smiled a lot more than before. It was probably because of the young man's personality. He thought about many things and was considerate of others at the first moment. It was really rare. Retreat, there's someone in front of you. Fu Jiu's entire being changed when she played the game. She had a light smile on her lips, and her finger movements were very beautiful. Chapter 456. K.O. Fu Jiu led her men and easily took down the enemy's city. The match took less than 5 minutes. The more the movie queen looked at the youngster, the more handsome she felt. Do you have any intention of developing in our circle? Fu Jiu didn't ask what kind of circle he was in. Instead, she smiled and said, I only play esports, not other circles. It's more than what you're earning from esports. The best actress really wants to poach him. With this kind of temperament, he will definitely be popular in the entertainment industry. The main thing is that the young man's smile was too charming. Fu Jiu curled up her lips. Madam, I think you have some misunderstandings about me. Although part of the reason I play sports is to make money, another part of the reason is that I like this industry, and I like the people in it even more. Every time I see them, I feel very happy. The movie queen heard the youngster's words and put away her phone with a smile. At that moment, she thought of her son. Clearly, playing games wasn't important to him. But even if he was injured, he still wanted to participate because there were teammates he cared about in the esports arena. Perhaps this was the most important thing. Only by fighting side by side with the person he liked could he live up to his youth. No wonder the two of them could become good friends. Because they are similar in some ways. What if I let you play sports for free? The movie queen asked again, since you like it, then why don't you do it? Fu Jiu laughed. I don't want to fight, I want to have fun, but I don't want to play professionally. I'm a realistic person, and no matter what I do, I have to think about survival first before talking about development. With that said, she raised her eyes and glanced at the time on the clock. She gestured to the movie queen that she was going to take a detour. The movie queen didn't stop the youngster. Instead, she looked at the back view and slowly smiled. Not a bad child. However, no one has ever rejected my invitation. Do you think this child loves money or not? Manager Lee thought for a moment and said, a gentleman loves money in a proper way. The movie queen smiled. I'm relieved to have such a person by Mo.'s side. Mo.'r probably likes people who have their own bottom line the most. Manager Lee nodded and wanted to remind him of something. For example, Madam, don't you think that young master and young master Fu are too close? And that couple. Madam, didn't you hear it? As the manager, Manager Lee had to remind him. The internet seems to be matching young master with young master Fu, this is normal. The movie queen didn't think much of it. We've seen a lot in the entertainment industry. Couples who have a good relationship will be paired together. Besides, the two of them are really good together. Don't you think so? How was she supposed to explain this? Manager Lee felt like he was choking. However, movie queen smiled and said, I wonder when their peripherals will be released. I'm going to buy a bunch of them and bring them home. Manager Lee, Fu Jiu didn't realize that she had left a perfect score in front of the movie queen. But when Fu Jiu walked back into the venue, she felt that the beauty looked familiar. However, he couldn't remember where he had seen it before. But she is really beautiful and well maintained, she found him familiar. It was probably because of her appearance disorder. With this thought in mind, Fu Jiu sat back in her seat. Chapter 457. 1 kill, 3 deaths. Lin Feng had already died twice. If he died again, he could be revived again. This was the rule of the esports competition. Feng Sheng gritted his teeth as he watched. He stuttered, the members of the Yunzhong battle team are too despicable. They only surrounded brother Lin Feng and fought him alone. Even though Fu Jiu wasn't there just now, she knew what the situation was like. If the other side didn't attack and only attacked one person, it was indeed a little sneaky. Old Jiang sneered. It seems like the outcome is set. Supreme Alliance is going to lose this time. The most vicious thing about the Yunzhong team was that they were still sending messages at this time. Lin Feng, are you scared? Are you hiding under the tower and not daring to come out? I say, we are in the middle lane, why don't you dare to come? If you are too scared with the two of us here, but we are alone here. Do you dare to come? In the face of such provocation. According to Lin Feng's temper, he wouldn't have been able to tolerate it. He had always been a violent person, never a person who could tolerate things. But at this moment, he tolerated it. He thought about a lot of things. Before he came, there was a sign that this would be the last time they would fight side by side. Because they grew up together. He knew how much that person hated losing. He hated losing in a fight. Even if his arm was bleeding, he would still take him to the arena. Someone even said that he didn't know how to play basketball. That guy abandoned his gun at home and went to the court to practice for a month. How could such a person like to lose? Lin Feng would always remember that when he was young, he always played in the mud and crickets, and he liked to bully the girls in the courtyard. At that time, they were just in the first grade of primary school. That guy carried his school bag and looked at him coldly. Lin Feng, if you continue like this, I won't play with you anymore. Lin Feng was annoyed. Why? What did he do wrong? I don't like to be with idiots. That guy glanced at him, and it was extremely cold. To prove that he wasn't an idiot, Lin Feng stopped playing with people casually and studied hard. Whatever that guy learned, he would learn it all. That was true at the beginning. But later, he understood that everyone had their own pride. Don't ask important people to do things they don't like. Don't let an important person lose. Lin Feng moved his fingers and his HP bar was full. Then, he rushed towards the bottom lane again. North of Yin Mountain set off at the same time, taking the middle road. The two of them seemed to have discussed this beforehand. Split up. What caught the Yunzhong battle team off guard was that Lin Feng chose to take the bottom lane instead of taking the middle lane because he couldn't take it anymore. One must know that their fighting style was specially trained to deal with Lin Feng. It was all for the sake of annihilating him. Against North of Yin Mountain, this strategy was useless. Indeed, it was useless. North of Yin Mountain was there to restrain them. On the other side, Lin Feng quickly and accurately took down the second defense tower and was attacking the third one. Retreat and defend. The members of the Yunzhong squad shouted. One of them had no choice but to block Lin Feng at the bottom lane. North of Yin Mountain, on the other hand, slashed across the back of the other person and used a critical attack. KO. 2 kills, 3 deaths. The Yunzhong battle team only had one person left now. The moment he heard the sound, Lin Feng quickly turned around and moved beautifully. One to the left, one to the right, he avoided the pursuit until he met up with North of Yin Mountain in the wilderness. Then, he used a stun on his opponent. North of Yin Mountain followed up with a big move. Perfect coordination. Chapter 458. It's not going to be easy for the Yunzhong team. Shoutcaster Zhang touched his chin. Old Jiang didn't think so. Don't forget that Supreme Alliance has the most casualties now. If Lin Feng dies again, it means that North of Yin Mountain is the only one left to fight. Although North of Yin Mountain's strength is not bad, he is an old general after all. He can't handle much by himself, so they definitely won't continue to attack. However, old Jiang was once again slapped in the face by his own words. Because of Lin Feng and the others. They continued to sweep past the bottom lane and attack the tower. They overtook them in a short minute. Everyone broke out in cold sweat for the Supreme Alliance. The people from the Yunzhong team didn't die together, so they had to revive one person first before the other. The one who revived first would be sending himself to his death. He couldn't beat 2 people at all. They couldn't just watch without going out. Hence, they could only use their skills to find Lin Feng's weakness and kill him first. Lin Feng was easily impatient when he played games. As long as he got close, he would bleed. But this time, the opponent found out that he was wrong. Lin Feng actually took a step back and handed the main attack to Yin Wuyao. Then, he used the stun support. K.O. 3 kills and 3 deaths. The city was attacked. Supreme Alliance won. The person who just said he wanted to kill Lin Feng again was stunned. He looked at the figure he had just revived on the city wall. But when he heard the word failure, his face turned pale. The commentator, Old Jiang, had completely shut up this time. The fans couldn't help but clap. They weren't Supreme Alliance fans but Yunzhong fans. It had to be said that this match was really exciting. Be it Yin Wuyao or Lin Feng, they charged forward again and again. Such a scene would make people's blood boil just by looking at it. Perhaps they were in different camps but that didn't affect their stubborn admiration. Today, Lin Feng was clearly different. He looked very beautiful in his battle uniform. The first thing he did when he stood up was to look at Yunhu, a big smile on his good-looking face. He was like the most innocent child. However, he realized that Yunhu's expression wasn't very good. What was going on? He had already won, so why was this fellow still putting on airs for him? Hey, you! Before Lin Feng could finish his sentence, Yunhu pulled him over, his voice deep. Look, I'll help you kill your way back no matter what they said about you. When Lin Feng heard that, he said, "You're a good brother." Fu Jiu shook her head. With how slow Lin Feng was, it was impossible for Yunhu's wish to come true. However, that was not important now. Most importantly, Qin Mo was about to go on stage. Everyone seemed to be waiting for this scene. How much better was Qin Mo's hand? Would he still have the same beautiful and unparalleled skills as before? All the cameras at the scene were aimed at him. Just like that, Qin Mo stood up. His handsome face could really make people scream in an instant. In fact, Supreme Alliance had endured for too long. Ever since he arrived at this arena, he had been looked down upon by the commentator. Just based on this point, Supreme Alliance was going to get back at them. Not to mention Qin Mo, a person who wouldn't allow his little brother to be bullied. Almost everyone in the arena could feel the aura coming from Qin Mo. It was completely different from when he was sitting on the chair. Just now, he was more like an elegant military advisor, pointing at the country without any sharpness. Chapter 459. The 5v5 was different from the previous 2 matches. The members of Supreme Alliance sat down in unison, looking indescribably handsome. They put on their headphones and adjusted their keyboards. This kind of scene could only be seen in the esports arena. The fans couldn't contain their excitement. Almighty Qin's face on the screen was so handsome that it moved their hearts. Go! There was only one word. The accompanying sound system of the game ended. The entire Supreme Alliance team moved out. Feng Shang and Coco went up and down respectively. Yunhu and Fatty were in the group. Qin Mo went wild and assisted in killing people. It had only been less than 2 minutes. Old Jiang, who had said that the Supreme Alliance team would definitely lose this time, was speechless now. The members of the Yunzhong team died one after another. It could even be said that they couldn't withstand a single blow. In fact, the Yunzhong team's ability wasn't like this. It was just that they underestimated their opponent. During the 1v1, Ling Xiao appeared. During the 2v2, they sent their elites. For the remaining group battles. Even if the Yunzhong team had Ling Xiao, they still needed 2 people to stop Qin Mo. What's more, Ling Xiao wasn't there. He was now sitting in the preparation area, his face ashen. His hands were clenched tightly by his sides. Team, annihilated. When the sound effects of the crushing came, the light in the eyes of the Yunzhong team seemed to have been killed. The Supreme Alliance team's playing style this time seemed to be deliberate. It was mainly because of the Almighty's order. There were only 3 words, kill to the end. No one could resist that kind of ruthlessness. It seemed to be saying, didn't you say that our people only knew how to hide? Didn't you say that our people were cowards? Then this time we will crush them head on. The 5 of them really did this, their hand speed was very fast. The Yunzhong team was most afraid of Qin Mo, so they sent 3 people to surround him. 1v3, it was impossible for Qin Mo not to lose HP. But just as he was losing HP, KO. One of the opponents died. Double kill. The second opponent died. The third opponent chased Qin Mo all the way. Just when he thought he had killed Qin Mo first used a big move to stun him, then turned around and used medicine to recover his HP. The shadow of his sword spun and held up a huge wind. If Fu Jiu's fighting style was based on his hand speed, Qin Mo's forte lay in his positioning. No one could see him clearly. They only knew that he killed people within 10 miles without leaving a trace. The light that lit up around him almost covered the entire screen. People watched as the last person in the cloud fell down heavily. The sound effect that shook the bloodline rang out again. 3. Kill. Qin Mo stood there with only a sliver of HP left on his armor. That technique. None of the Qin fans who were familiar with him did not know about the 3000 knife slash. That was the true meaning of the 3000 knife slash. Back then, someone had used this name to describe Qin Mo's fighting style. This was because he was the only one in the entire esports arena who could complete a triple kill even when his HP was low. It was only for a moment. All the fans in the venue stood up. As if they were ignited by fire, they shouted the same name at the same time. Qin Mo. Not only in the venue, but also on the internet, the number of views had exceeded 100 million. Old Jiang, who had previously said that Qin Mo might degenerate due to his injury, was now red from the slap. Not to mention, the Yunzhong battle team was unable to recover from the setback. Supreme Alliance 1. Chapter 460. That was a slap in the face. The people from Yunzhong couldn't even lift their heads. Old Jiang was even more so. When the camera shone on his face, he wished he could disappear on the spot. In fact, since the end of the duo match, Supreme Alliance had already won. But before, they could say that they had underestimated their opponent or that it was Supreme Alliance's strategy. Now, they had nothing to say. They were wiped out 3 times. Supreme Alliance didn't give them a chance to fight back. Some of the audience who said that there was nothing to see in this match were now silent. Their eyes were shaking, and they really didn't know what to say. This was just a regional match. Supreme Alliance was already like this. What about in the future? What would it be like? Uncontrollably, everyone began to look forward to the next match. Perhaps this was the reason why Qin Mo was named the most valuable esports player. Every time he played, it was hot-blooded and touched people's hearts. Fu Jiu just stood there. She didn't know why, but at that moment, she felt that the Almighty was extraordinarily handsome. Yeah, just for a moment. More handsome than her. Probably because the Almighty's side profile was always full of indifference and righteousness. The people around Fu Jiu had never been like this. How to put it? No matter what he did, he looked like a top student. Even if he was as handsome as the devil. But on the inside, he was very upright. Fu Jiu thought that this might be the difference between her and the Almighty. It was really rare to see such an unwavering person like the Almighty. His righteousness was as dazzling as the light. Fu Jiu laughed. If it was the old her, she definitely wouldn't have anything to do with the Almighty. Because, from a certain point of view, she didn't want to meet this kind of person. She envied him, but she could never become him. She was destined to live in the dark. Hurry up and hug me, how long are you going to look for? Qin Mo walked to the youngster and smiled faintly. Are you crying because of my handsomeness? Fujio suddenly felt that the smile was a little familiar. She showed her white teeth. Yeah, I'm crying because of my handsomeness. Oh right, brother Mo, let me ask you something. Do you have any cousins? No. Chin Mo's eyes were very faint. Fujio smiled. If there are any cousins that you can introduce to me, I will marry them. As long as they look like you, they will definitely look good. Aya, little spade, your compliment skills are fine. Lin Feng stood over. Even if you want to suck up to Captain, you can't do it this way, understand? Mind your integrity. However, Chin Mo wasn't in a good mood after being praised. Marry her. Was he going to marry a woman? Chin Mo glanced at the youngster who was still smiling. The more he looked, the tighter his chest became. He decided to knock the youngster's head. I asked you to hug me, understand? Yes, a hug. Fujio smiled, opened her arms, and hugged Chin Mo handsomely. Brother Mo, we won. His nostrils were filled with the fragrance of the youngster's grass and the sweetness of the lollipop. When he placed his hand on the youngster's back, he couldn't bear to let go. It was probably because it was too comfortable, like the softness of a quilt after sunning. It made him want to stay like this. Fujio was a little stiff. She thought that he would let go after a short hug. After all, this was what her teammates did just now. She also knew that the Almighty didn't have any other intentions. Because the Almighty hugged her like he was hugging a brother. Chapter 461. Fujio was glad that it was winter again. Her chest was wrapped in bandages, and she was still wearing her uniform. As long as they weren't that close, it would be fine. Chin Mo also felt that he had hugged the young man for a long time, but he didn't let go. He didn't push the young man away until the CP fans started taking pictures excitedly. However, just this scene alone was enough for the girls to start a series of imagination. They wanted to ask, Almighty Chin, are you sure you aren't just giving out candy? Oh, there was another theme. The first match of the first round was so exciting, so of course there should be a celebration. This was completely in line with Manager Feng's rich personality. Dinner was booked at the biggest hotel in Lincheng. Chin Mo had to deal with some company matters in addition to being the captain of the Supreme Alliance, so he would be late. Shui Yaoyao was sitting next to Fujio. The entire private room was filled with Supreme Alliance members. It was still bustling when the door was pushed open. First, it was the waiter. The waiter seemed to be very polite to the people who came and led the way for them. But when Fujio saw the newcomer, she raised her eyebrows. Wasn't this the lady who said she was a fan in front of the vending machine today? Almost instantly, Fujio felt the atmosphere around her change a little. She couldn't tell what it was like. But Lin Feng's hand that was drinking red wine froze, and Yun who also sat upright on the side. It was a bit like a junior high student meeting their class teacher. Fujio looked sideways. What was going on? I told you they were here, the movie queen said, smiling elegantly at Fujio. Almighty, we meet again. Pfft. Hearing the word, Almighty, Lin Feng couldn't help coughing heavily. He subconsciously winked at Fujio, as if asking how do you know my goddess? Why does my goddess call you Almighty? Fujio really couldn't understand what he meant. She stood up casually and said politely, Madam, I'm very sorry. I don't know how you found your way here, but this is a private gathering of our team. We don't want to be disturbed, so we can't play games with you this time. Hearing that, Lin Feng directly grabbed Fujio's sleeve, which meant to say, sit down, sit down. Fujio continued to raise her eyebrows. Was she impolite just now? Movie queen, that's the movie queen. Lin Feng was still reminding them. On the other side, the movie queen was already laughing. As expected of Spade Z, you have such a personality. Honestly, are you really not going to join our industry? The people in our circle are much prettier than those in the esports circle. You still don't have a girlfriend, right? I can help you with the introduction. Your face and the look in your eyes are simply perfect. Fu Jiu didn't finish. Lin Feng interrupted the youngster's words. He said he can consider it. Fu Jiu. Is this how you betray your teammate? Surprisingly, Yunhu didn't bother with Lin Feng. What was going on? In reality, Yunhu didn't care about Lin Feng because he knew something that even Lin Feng didn't know. He had vaguely heard about the identity of this movie queen from his father's generation, but how was he supposed to warn Little Spade? Besides, will the captain let us talk about it? More importantly, how did Little Spade get to know him? There should be no intersection between the two lines. Yunhu furrowed his brows. On the other side, the movie queen persisted. Don't worry, filming won't affect your gaming. When you want to play, you can come back, but... Chapter 462. It was Qin Mo. He had just come from the business world and was dressed in private clothes. The fluffy collar of his black coat contrasted with the side of his face, making his appearance seem even more noble and unparalleled. But as soon as he said that, Fu Jiu was dumbfounded. What did the Almighty call the person in front of her? Mom? Mom? Not only Fu Jiu, but all the other team members except Yun, who looked like they were struck by lightning. The movie queen was Captain's mother. That was too shocking. It would be more accurate to call them siblings. After all, the movie queen looked really young. She didn't look like someone who had a son in his 20s at all. In fact, movie queen got married early, and she also had Qin Mo early. Plus, she took good care of herself, and her skin was very good. Most importantly, her skin was in good condition. So in the eyes of outsiders, she looked like she was just 30 years old. No one would have thought that she was already a mother. Fu Jiu's smile was a bit stiff. How should she put it? The Almighty's mother was her fan. This was too embarrassing. Movie queen didn't think much of it. After being caught by her son, she still held onto Fu Jiu's arm. I just came to cheer you on, and to meet the Almighty who plays games with me. The Almighty who plays games with you? Qin Mo raised his eyebrows and looked at the embarrassed young man. Fu Jiu really wanted to die. That pair of beautiful eyes quietly conveyed a message, Brother Mo, I really didn't know this was Auntie. Qin Mo looked at the young man's expression and curled up the corner of his mouth. Fu Jiu continued to raise her eyebrows, meaning, come and save me. Qin Mo was a big brother after all. Even if he liked to see the embarrassed young man, he wouldn't let it go on for too long. Beautyan, the Almighty you are talking about will not join your circle. He is my team member. The movie queen really felt that her son was too indifferent, and the young man looked better. So she held on to Fu Jiu's arm and didn't let go. Almighty, you can contact me anytime after you've made up your mind. Manager Li was also quite embarrassed. After all, it was hard to say that someone like Madam, who was trying to poach a young master so openly. The members of the Supreme Alliance looked at each other and continued to be wallflowers in silence. Fu Jiu chuckled and felt that she had to reject the offer. Auntie, I'm sorry. I'm not interested in the entertainment industry. Movie queen wouldn't force him to do something he didn't want to do. She sighed. All right then, there will be chances in the future. But that isn't important. As a fan, I'm already happy to be able to interact with you so closely. By the way, you're really handsome. Let me know when the merchandise comes out, I'll get someone to order 999 sets. Fu Jiu. She felt that the Almighty's family was so rich. Come, don't be so formal, sit down. Movie queen continued, her smile revealing 2 dimples. I'll just stay here for a while, I won't disturb your gathering. Lin Feng immediately said, it's okay if Auntie stays to eat. Movie queen replied calmly, I'll stay. Fu Jiu, But looking at it this way, she finally understood where the Almighty's etiquette came from. Even though she was saying such words, her beauty was indescribable. Her elegance seemed to emanate from within. It seemed like the Almighty's good looks were mostly inherited from the movie queen. The movie queen was a very easy person to get along with. Chapter 463. He liked to give things away. As soon as I saw you, I felt that the men's outfit I brought back from the fashion show in Paris suits you very well. I'll get someone to send it to the Fu family. You have to wear it. Fu Jiu's hand was still held by movie queen, so she could only turn sideways and ask the Almighty for help. But this time, the Almighty didn't help her. Instead, he said with a smile in his voice, "There's no competition these 2 days, so you can let him sleep at our place and dress up however he wants." Fu Jiu. She wasn't a doll who could dress up however she wanted. Almighty, you can't do this to your teammate. Qin Mo didn't change his expression and let the youngster size him up. He didn't feel guilty at all. Since he couldn't sleep well without this person, he might as well think of a way to bring him home. That's good. Fu Jiu could clearly see that movie queen N's eyes had lit up. But dressing up as she pleased was out of the question. Because she had to take off her clothes. How could a girl like her take off her clothes in the Almighty's house? Fu Jiu was still thinking of an excuse to reject him. Shui Yaoyao saw this and didn't care anymore. She said, "His Highness Jiu and I have an appointment. He promised to do me a favor, so he won't be free these 2 days." Qin Mo's hand that was holding the teacup paused when he heard that. He heard the youngster's voice with a light laugh. "Yes, I've already made an appointment. Auntie, maybe next time." Lin Feng was interested. "Little Spade, tell me the truth. What are you going to do with Sister Yao alone? Why are you being so mysterious?" Fu Jiu didn't know either, but she didn't show it. Instead, she raised her eyebrows and said, "I'm not telling you." Hearing that, Qin Mo frowned. It was obvious that she didn't want to tell him where he was going with Shui Yaoyao. Lin Feng clicked his teeth and knocked on the table with his fingers. "So this is your date? I want to date a girl too." "Up to you, if anyone is willing." Fu Jiu glanced at Yunhu when she said that, but she realized that he didn't move at all. If it weren't for his deep eyes, Fu Jiu would have thought that he didn't feel anything. But when Lin Feng said he was going to date a girl, he wasn't joking. Tomorrow was Sunday. It wasn't easy to get a day off. Indeed, he wanted to find someone to go on a date and watch a movie or something. He wasn't the only one thinking about it. The group of monks in the team were probably thinking about it too. Lin Feng wasn't wrong about this. Qin Mo knew his subordinates well, but he never expected the youngster to date someone alone. Of course, no one noticed. This time, when Qin Mo picked up another vegetable, he used too much force and broke it. He clearly knew that there was something wrong with his thoughts. He had also advised himself that his younger brother did not represent his private property. But Qin Mo couldn't help thinking that perhaps he should make a pair of handcuffs and ankles to lock someone up. "Sigh, I really envy you guys." The movie queen supported her chin with one hand, looking very beautiful. "It's good to be a high school student, you can even date, unlike Mo who didn't know what dating was. He didn't have a single girl by his side. Even as a parent, I couldn't enjoy the feeling of knowing my son's puppy love secret." In the face of such ridicule, Qin Mo only replied with 2 words, "Troublesome." "Do you think girls are troublesome?" Fu Jiu took a sip of tea. It seemed like the Almighty was really against girls getting close to him. Chapter 464. After the meal, Lin Feng was still curious. He knew that Fu Jiu wouldn't answer, so he asked Shui Yaoyao. Shui Yaoyao looked at her hands and hid the emotions in her eyes before saying, "It's nothing. My mom is reorganizing her family, and a new brother is going to celebrate his birthday. I want to invite His Highness Jiu to go with me. In fact, Shui Yaoyao didn't want to say this at first. She just said that to help Fu Jiu out. But since she said it, she might as well do it all together. But, she didn't know if His Highness Jiu would agree. Thinking of this, Shui Yaoyao looked at Fu Jiu again. Fu Jiu curled her lips into a smile, raised her hand, and rubbed her head. It's my duty to be Yaoyao's protector. Little Spade, that's enough. If you keep flirting with Sister Yao, believe it or not, Big Brother will beat you down with force. Lin Feng felt that Fu Jiu was the public enemy of all men. Which man understood girls so well? Movie Queen and watched the commotion and felt that the kids weren't bad. She broke into a smile and was about to turn to ask her son something when she caught sight of his cold profile. Her beautiful eyes froze. What's wrong? Qin Mo realized something and retracted his gaze from the youngster's hand. His voice was indifferent. Nothing. Movie Queen and looked over again and didn't find anything wrong. But there was one thing. I heard from Yao Yao that she is going to a birthday party tomorrow. It's for her brother who is reorganizing his family. If I remember correctly, the Jiang family is going to hold a party tomorrow. It can't be such a coincidence. Qin Mo heard this and looked over at Shui Yaoyao. He didn't say anything. He was never interested in other people's business. Even though he was basically sure that Shui Yaoyao was Jiang's stepsister, he wasn't interested in this topic. Movie Queen looked at the youngster and then at her son. She suddenly felt a little disappointed. You should learn from little Jiu in the future. See how much girls like him. Manager Li said quietly, Madam, you forgot that young master doesn't lack girls. But what Manager Li didn't expect was that Qin Mo would say something with a hint of hostility. Soon, he will know that girls aren't that good. Movie Queen didn't think much about it, but the more she looked at the youngster, the more she found him pleasing to the eye. There wouldn't be a girl like little Jiu who wouldn't treat him well. But he and Yao Yao are compatible, I can tell that he treats Yao Yao well. As the captain, you shouldn't be so harsh. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve, don't make him train all the time. A good match? After hearing this, Qin Mo's eyes darkened a little. Only then did he notice that the young girl whom the youth was smiling at seemed to be different from when they first met. Although she wasn't very thin now, she seemed to have lost a lot of weight compared to before. She had a round face, and the young man always liked to touch her head. Qin Mo narrowed his eyes, the coldness in his body didn't dissipate even after Movie Queen left. But before Movie Queen left, she said, you must visit the Qin family in the future. Fu Jiu really wanted to say that she had already been there, but to avoid further trouble, she just nodded and said with a light smile, okay. Chapter 465. Inexplicably, Fu Jiu felt that the Almighty's coldness had returned after the meal. But when she looked carefully, the Almighty curled up his thin lips at her, smiling lazily, looking very handsome. He should be fine. Fu Jiu was sure that the Almighty was fine when she got a call from him the next day when she returned to Jiang City. Come out. 2 simple words, very much in line with the Almighty's style. Fu Jiu raised her eyebrows. Brother Mo, are you? As if he knew what the young man was asking, Qin Mo replied faintly, outside your house. Hearing that, Fu Jiu didn't waste any more time. She hung up and walked out. She didn't wear a mask, but it was a very cold day. Because it had been snowing since early morning, the outside was covered with a layer of silver. The scene looked like something out of a comic, with snow on the pine trees. Qin Mo was just standing there, wearing a black trench coat. His legs were long and slender, and he was leaning against the Hummer. He had a cigarette between his slender fingers. After seeing Fu Jiu, he raised his eyebrows and said in a magnetic voice, what are you looking at? Come here. I'm admiring Brother Mo's beauty. Fu Jiu whistled with her hands in her pockets. That posture just now was so handsome. Qin Mo looked at the young man in front of him. His face was still very handsome, but he dressed more carefully than usual. Even his silver hair was tidied up. Obviously, today was not an ordinary day for the young man. The more it was like this, the more Chin Mo felt that he had to do something. But Chin Mo had always been a person who didn't show his emotions on his face. Even if he had some plans, there wouldn't be any changes in his gaze. Fu Jiu didn't know what he was thinking, so she waved her fingers in front of his eyes. Chin Mo reached out and suppressed the claws. Then he looked at the young man's face again. It was really cute, but because he was afraid of the cold, his nose was a little pink, which made him look small. Why didn't you wear a mask? I came out as soon as I heard Brother Mo was downstairs. I didn't have time. Chin Mo was really happy when he heard this reason. He turned around and took out a mask from the car. Put it on. Brother Mo's? Fu Jiu took it and looked at it. Chin Mo grunted and put out the cigarette. What? You don't like me? No. Fu Jiu put on her mask, her voice trembling. I was just asking. Chin Mo reached out and adjusted the position of the youngster's mask. Fu Jiu truly felt that a handsome face was very tempting when it was too close to her. If this went on, she really wanted to raise a god. Get in. Where to? I bought sweets for you, not that I've finished them. Fu Jiu didn't expect the Almighty to remember such a thing. His eyes were smiling when he got into the car. However, I have an appointment with Yao Yao at noon. Chin Mo's hands froze on the steering wheel. His gaze deepened. I know. The Almighty knew. That's good. This way, after the Almighty brought her to buy candy, she could retreat and meet up with Yao Yao. She looked like she had a lot on her mind. This birthday party shouldn't be that simple. However, the facts proved that this was not the case. First of all, when they were buying the candy, the Almighty had consulted a professional about the taste and the lack of cavities. It would definitely take some time. Later on, the Almighty asked her to accompany him for a meal. In the end, side note, no charge for more than 1,000 words. This book is from QQ Book City, Cloud Rising Book City, Chidian Book City. No authorization. Reprinting, adaptation, and plagiarism are prohibited. Violators will be prosecuted. Chapter 466. Fu Jiu looked at the dishes on the table and the people sitting around her. The Almighty had never told her that having a meal would involve a long business interaction. Chin Mo sat beside Fu Jiu. Rather than a business meeting, it was more like someone wanted to cooperate with the Chin group. So the atmosphere wasn't that serious. On the contrary, these people treated Fu Jiu with more importance than they had before. How could they not? CEO Chin was really raising his younger brother. Who dared to mess with the Chin family? Compared to the group of middle-aged men, Chin Mo was indeed very eye-catching. He was 1.9 meters tall and had a noble temperament. His shirt was rolled up, revealing his clean wrists. He put the food on the youngster's plate from time to time. No matter how much Fu Jiu ate, there was still a limit. Moreover, she had an appointment to attend. She looked up and said in a low voice, Brother Mo, that's enough. I can't eat so much. Or do you think it's easy to climb over walls at 1.7 meters? Chin Mo's indifferent words hit the youngster's weak spot. Fu Jiu lowered her head and stuffed another mouthful of food into her mouth. Everything was for her height. But after this mouthful, she still had to think about the time. The bosses beside her smiled lightly. CEO Chin is really good to his brother. He's still young, so he has to be looked at. He doesn't look manly at all. Chin Mo's facial features were deep and handsome. He was obviously very young, but he was reserved and calm. The bosses couldn't help but laugh, and they all talked about how to manage their younger brothers. Fu Jiu listened with her head tilted, and she looked at her phone again. Time was really tight. Fu Jiu was also afraid that Shui Yao Yao would get anxious from waiting, so she lowered her eyes and sent a WeChat message. Where are you now? I'm coming over. Chin Mo was sitting beside Fujio, so of course he could sense the youngster's movements. He had a tall nose and a glass of red wine in his hand, but his eyes were looking in the youngster's direction. When he realized who the youngster was texting, his long and narrow eyes instantly turned deep and cold. Chin Mo didn't show his transformation at all. He just used strength in his fingers, and the way he held the glass made him look like a mixed blood, more like a devil. After receiving the address, Fujio calculated the time and said, "Brother Mo, you guys eat first. Yao Yao's place isn't near here, so I'll go over earlier." Chin Mo's face was expressionless as he replied faintly, "Okay." However, when the young man stood up, Chin Mo's eyes were cold to the extreme. The person next to him noticed something and hurriedly said, "Young Master Zhou, you shouldn't leave yet. President Qin drank a lot today and drove here. If you leave, how will he go back?" Fujio paused, as if she was hesitating. Chin Mo glanced up, his brows arched beautifully. "I'm fine, my stomach isn't feeling well. I'll get someone to fetch me when I'm better." It would have been better if the Almighty hadn't said that. Hearing that, Fujio immediately sent another message. "Pick your clothes first, I'll be there later." After sending the message, Fujio put her phone into her pocket and said to Chin Mo, "Go back now and take your medicine." Normal people wouldn't dare to interfere with Boss Chin's business. After listening to the youngster's words, the bosses felt that they had to watch their words and actions when they saw this hedonistic young master of the Fu family in the future. Chapter 467. Of course, those bosses wouldn't disagree. They politely asked Chin Mo to go home and have a good rest. But in their hearts, they were muttering, "Boss Chin doesn't usually act like this after drinking. How much did he drink? He can't even put down a bottle. Why did he say that his stomach was uncomfortable after one drink? Maybe he had something to do at home, so he made up an excuse." However, Boss Chin never seemed to find excuses. In the past, he would leave right after discussing business, and he would always be the handsome and dignified one. Although they were older than Boss Chin, they couldn't compare to him in terms of aura. Hence, after seeing Chin Mo's reaction, the bosses exchanged glances with each other, their eyes filled with doubt. The two of them still didn't drive. Fujio would only be 18 after the new year, so she didn't even have a driver's license. How she wished she had an old scooter. Or, she could buy one later. It was winter, and the old scooter was warm. Skateboarding was fine, but it wasn't convenient when she met the Almighty. When Fujio was a hacker, she often suffered from stomach problems, so she knew how uncomfortable it was. They couldn't always take taxis when the Almighty was in pain. The two of them arrived at the military compound. Taxis couldn't enter this place at all. Most of the cars here were license plates. The driver was in a dilemma. Chin Mo rolled down the window, and that handsome face appeared. The soldiers saluted and said, "Let us pass." It wasn't strange to see someone in a military uniform here. The driver probably didn't do this kind of work, so he found everything strange. Fujio was still looking at the time. Chin Mo didn't roll up the window, but said faintly, "If you have something urgent, you can leave first. I'll drink some hot water by myself when I get back." "By yourself?" Fujio raised her eyebrows. "No one at home?" Of course, Chin Mo wouldn't say that he gave all the servants the day off, so he just calmly said two words to the youngster, "No." Fujio looked sideways. She didn't know why, but the Almighty reminded her of herself in the past. When her stomach hurt, she would lie down at home and drink water. In such a big room, she would be the only one there. When the pain got worse, she would drink. Anyway, it wouldn't hurt when she woke up. "I'll be fine as long as I can get there around 4 o'clock. Fujio reached out and rolled up the window for him. "Don't stand in the wind if your stomach hurts. I'll make you some porridge later." Chin Mo chuckled. "Edible?" Fujio looked serious. Porridge is fine. The facts proved that, even when Fujio was cooking porridge, she needed the Almighty's guidance. Your rice hasn't been washed yet. Qin Mo looked at the youngster who was about to boil the rice in the pot and reminded him in a calm voice. The Qin family's kitchen was semi-open, and the decoration was very high-end. Fujio could almost see the man leaning against the wall with his eyebrows slightly arched. He was a little handsome, but also a little helpless. Fujio knew why the Almighty was helpless, so she explained while washing the rice, I just forgot. Qin Mo looked at the youngster and lifted his thin lips. He said nonchalantly, I trust you. Fujio. His tone was really insincere. In order to prove that he still had the strength, Fujio took out the chopping board to show off her knife skills. He had to admit that the ham and cucumber were cut beautifully. But then, Fujio forgot when was the right time to put it in. Chapter 468. Brother Mo, you won't have any friends if you keep talking like this. Fujio said as she lowered her head and unlocked her phone. Even if I don't remember, I can still search for tutorials. Cooking porridge is as simple as that, right? Qin Mo looked at the youngster's fair skin when he lowered his head. It was probably because his skin was so good that it looked like the finest jade and was even glowing. Qin Mo suddenly reached out his hand and pinched the back of Fujio's neck. Fujio looked sideways. What? Don't show your back to others in the future. Qin Mo's voice was very calm. Fujio chuckled. Don't worry, I won't do it when I'm fighting. Qin Mo frowned. Did this guy really have no boundaries between men and women? If that was true, why didn't he hear his warning? Or was he too inexperienced? Qin Mo smiled and stood behind Fujio. After searching for tutorials, the youngster's movements were very smooth, but the noise was a little loud. In the end, the Almighty couldn't stand it anymore. He held Fujio's hand that was holding the spoon, and he said in a noble and restrained manner, patience is the most important thing when cooking porridge. Who would mess around like you? That's my style. Brother Mo, you don't understand. Fujio was very good at talking about crooked ways. Qin Mo curled his thin lips, his fingers holding the porcelain jade-like wrist in his palm, but he didn't say anything. In the semi-open kitchen, the two of them stood one after the other, holding the same spoon in their hands. Because of the height difference, the youngster seemed to be hugged from behind by a man. Fujio felt that this position was too intimate. The Almighty let go of her hand first, and his eyes were deep. Okay, let it cook for 20 minutes. After saying that, Qin Mo freed his left hand and pressed it against his stomach. Fujio directly reached out and put the Almighty's hand on her shoulder. This way, the two of them were even closer. When Qin Mo lowered his head, the corner of his mouth curved up. It seemed that he had to use both soft and hard tactics to manage his little brother. Fujio was indeed susceptible to soft tactics. She had a handsome face, and when she did household chores like cooking porridge, she was like a stylish vampire bat, flying here and there. In the end, she happily served a big bowl of vegetable porridge to the Almighty. In fact, Fujio had also noticed that the Almighty hadn't eaten anything during the meal. Qin Mo sat on the wooden chair and looked at the bowl of Big Mac on the dining table. When he thought about the youngster's usual appetite, he wanted to laugh again. Fujio didn't understand what the Almighty was laughing at. Could it be that her plate presentation was too ugly? But what kind of presentation was needed for a bowl of porridge? Fujio thought about this and looked down at her phone again. She planned to pack up and leave after the Almighty finished his bowl of porridge. However, she didn't know if it was because the Almighty was too elegant when eating. The bowl of porridge showed no signs of diminishing. The Almighty ate really slowly. In Fujio's words, she could directly go shoot posters. In fact, Qin Mo wasn't really hungry at first. He was just surprised that the porridge tasted good, so he couldn't help but take 2 more bites. After finishing a bowl of porridge, it should take a lot of time. He didn't expect the young man to give him such a big bowl. However, the bigger the bowl, the longer it would take to eat, right? However, at this moment, there was a sudden sound from the door. Chapter 469. The person who walked in was Movie Queen and of course, Manager Lee whom General Qin had sent over. Movie Queen's elegant and beautiful face paused for a moment when she saw the youngster. Then, she smiled with two charming dimples. Fujiu. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? Fujiu stood up politely and smiled faintly. Brother Mo drank too much, so I brought him back. Drank too much? After hearing this, Movie Queen turned around and looked at Manager Lee in confusion. He seemed to be asking if her son had ever drunk too much before. Manager Lee had seen much of the world. He calmly greeted Qin Mo, young master Fu. Then, he stood aside and didn't say anything. He really didn't want to say that his young master couldn't withstand special training, and that even 3 bottles of Wuliangye couldn't make him drunk. Movie Queen didn't care too much. Since the youngster she liked was here, she would ask Fujiu to try on the clothes she mentioned. Fujiu naturally wouldn't agree. She smiled faintly and said, Auntie, I'll try it on another day. Since you're back, you can take care of Brother Mo. His stomach isn't feeling well, and I have an appointment to keep. It's already past time, so I have to go now. Movie Queen was a reasonable person. She smiled and said, all right, another day. No one noticed that while the two of them were talking, Qin Mo, who was sitting at the dining table eating porridge, had a pair of icy eyes. Fujiu didn't say anything more. She put on her black jacket and made a, I'm leaving, gesture to Qin Mo. But she didn't know if the Almighty didn't see it, but he didn't care about her. Maybe it was because he was eating porridge. She didn't have time to think too much. Yao Yao must be waiting anxiously. With this thought, Fujiu quickened her steps. She didn't look back. But as soon as she looked back, Qin Mo's hand, which was holding the wooden spoon, paused heavily after she left. Qin Mo ate 2 more mouthfuls of porridge, but he realized that the taste seemed to have changed. It didn't have the same aroma as before. In the end, he put down the bowl and turned to take the black coat from the back of the chair. Movie Queen looked at him. Mo, where are you going? Didn't you say you had a stomachache? I'm fine now. Qin Mo's voice was calm, and his walking posture didn't look like someone who had a stomachache just now. He recovered so quickly. This stomach ailment is really magical. Movie Queen muttered to herself as she watched her son's tall figure disappear by the door. And why was there no one at home? What about Auntie Zhang and the others? Usually, he should be at home at this time. Movie Queen was bewildered. On the other hand, Qin Mo was looking for someone after he went out. But after searching for a long time, he couldn't find any trace of the young man. He must have gotten into the car and gone to the meeting place. Qin Mo continued walking forward in silence. His movements were slow and elegant, which seemed to match his usual nonchalant attitude. It was just that the fingers hidden under the black gloves used strength. He stared expressionlessly at the emptiness in front of him and stood there silently. Gradually, a cool breeze touched his body, however, he didn't seem to feel it. There was no smile on his handsome face. For some reason, his chest felt a little stuffy. That kind of feeling is like seeing something you like very much. He wanted to take it for himself. He didn't hesitate to use all means. Chapter 470. The Jiang family's birthday banquet couldn't be ordinary. In reality, Shui Yaoyao didn't want to appear at such an occasion. Because she knew that Jiang Zhua didn't want her as a sister and didn't want to accept her as a mother. As long as she saw the man's expressionless side profile, Shui Yaoyao would panic. She wished that her mother didn't marry Uncle Jiang. But she couldn't be so selfish. Because she knew that Uncle Jiang was a good person. When it came to her mother, Uncle Jiang was really careful and gentle. Everyone said that her mother had accumulated good fortune in her past life, that she could get a rich husband by buying breakfast. It was probably because she was old and didn't have so many thoughts. Jiang Zuo's father was a soldier and liked Mama Shui's gentleness in taking care of others. There had always been misunderstandings between him and his son. The family couldn't live without a mistress. Jiang Zuo's father had hesitated about remarrying. In the end, he had decided to marry her. It was normal for them to get to know each other and fall in love. He had to give the woman a status. He had discussed this with Jiang Zuo. Jiang Zuo had only told him to do as he pleased. He didn't seem to dislike it, but he didn't agree either. Until he saw Shui Yaoyao's family, his expression changed completely. He seemed to be certain that Shui Yaoyao's mother was doing it for money. Perhaps even Jiang Zuo didn't know why he didn't want his father to remarry. But at the same time, he understood. In the Jiang family, he would always be the legitimate grandson. With his grandfather around, any woman had to follow the rules. Shui Yaoyao's mother understood this. She treated Jiang Zuo like a child. After all, no matter how noble he was only 3 years older than Shui Yaoyao. But after interacting with him, Shui Yaoyao's mother understood. Children had different ways of thinking. For example, Jiang Zuo. He was a mature child and she had to consider everything. But that was normal since she was someone else's stepmother. A few days before the birthday party, she had told the children at home to be quiet when they arrived at the Jiang family and not to take what they shouldn't take. Shui Yaoyao knew that her mother had to consider many things after marrying into this family. Hence, even when Shui Yaoyao was mocked, she didn't tell her mother. Just like now. What do you think she's doing at this birthday party? Don't tell me he still hasn't given up on young Master Jiang. That's disgusting. In the past, I only thought that she was fat, but now that young Master Jiang is her brother, she wants to be close to him. Didn't you see how much young Master Jiang hates their family? You don't say. Some poor people don't even care about their self-esteem for money. For example, her mother married Uncle Jiang for money. Shui Yaoyao clenched her fists tightly. If it wasn't for her mother's reminder, she really wanted to rush over and tell these rich people. Not all poor people do things for money. Why did these people always judge a person's character by whether they had money or not? Perhaps it was because of these reasons that she was unwilling to come to the Jiang family. However, she couldn't not come to such an occasion. Look at her. Why did she learn to wear a skirt? She's so ugly. Why do I feel like she has lost some weight? Chapter 471. Shui Yaoyao heard their words and knew that these people had a good relationship with Jiang Zuo. She didn't know if they said that because Jiang Zuo hated her. For a moment, she couldn't take it anymore. She lifted her eyes and looked at one of the girls. That girl saw Shui Yaoyao looking at her, and her anger rose. She immediately sneered, thinking that this poor thing dared to look at her like that. Come. Since it's a birthday party, we should find something to liven things up. That girl was dressed very beautifully, and she spoke with a smile. Her family was very rich. Standing beside her was none other than Han Susu, who had been obsessed with Fu Jiu recently. They were all from the same school, had a good relationship, and often hung out together. To be honest, if it weren't for Jiang Zuo, they wouldn't even look at Shui Yaoyao. Because in their hearts, a fat and poor person like Shui Yaoyao was an embarrassment to girls like them. Jia, what do you want to play? Han Susu knew what her friend wanted to do, but she decided to go along with it. They would be happy to let that fat pig leave as soon as possible. But Yao Jia didn't think so. She had always liked Jiang Zuo, and it wasn't easy for her to get the chance to be with him. Why could this fat pig see Jiang Zuo every day just because she was his sister? Isn't this a wine bottle? Let's not go overboard. Let's just play dare. Whoever spins it, that person has to find someone of the opposite sex to hug. Yao Jia began to spin the wine bottle as she spoke. Her strength was clearly intentional as the bottle turned to the left and aimed at Shui Yaoyao. Ah, I didn't expect things to be so coincidental. Yao Jia pretended to be surprised as she looked at Shui Yaoyao. Then she laughed. Since you've been chosen, go ahead. Shui Yaoyao's eyes darkened. I didn't say I wanted to participate in your game. Shui Yaoyao, do you still want to quarrel with everyone on such an occasion? Yao Jia's voice was indifferent. It's just a game. Shui Yaoyao wanted to say something, but she saw Jiang Zhuo walking over. Behind him were his good friends. They were all noble and handsome. It was obvious that Jiang Zhuo had heard their conversation. But the man didn't say anything. Shui Yaoyao thought that he might have tacitly approved of her behavior. They even felt that she would spoil everyone's mood if she didn't agree. Yaoyao really didn't want her mother to have a hard time in this family because of her. But who was she going to find to hug? The person standing behind Jiang Zhuo laughed. Your sister is so dumb, she could have just hugged you. She had thought that Jiang Zhuo wouldn't agree, but she hadn't expected him to respond with a faint mmh, but why would Shui Yaoyao hug Jiang Zhuo? That person had already told her to stay away from him. Especially after that kind of thing had happened, Shui Yaoyao was afraid to recall what happened that night because the man's disgusted expression was so obvious. If he went up now, he would probably be despised even more. Shui Yaoyao had her own pride. Compared to Jiang Zhuo, the stranger was probably better. With that thought in mind, Shui Yaoyao plucked up her courage and asked for a hug from a stranger at the party. Chapter 472. Yao Jia watched from the side, her lips curling up. She had expected such a situation. Who would be willing to accept an invitation from a fat pig? The reason why she suggested this was to embarrass Shui Yaoyao. It would also let that person know that even if she entered the Jiang family, she wasn't fit to be Jiang Zhuo's sister. People from the slums would never be on the same level as them. If the other party was good-looking and knew how to suck up to them, it would be fine. But Shui Yaoyao hadn't expressed anything after so long. She was just a poor person, so what was she being so arrogant about? Shui Yaoyao also knew that the other party was deliberately making things difficult for her. Perhaps we will encounter such occasions. She clearly knew what methods the other party used and what intentions they had. But for someone more important than herself, she couldn't resist or make a fuss. Because if she did anything, she would be criticized again. Her mother didn't teach her well. Children from ordinary families didn't know the big picture, etc. The laughter by her ear was obvious. She stood there stiffly, wanting to throw everything away. Yao Jia crossed her arms and chuckled. Yaoyao, why aren't you moving? Go quickly, there are still people over there. Since we're going to play, let's play to our heart's content. Go quickly. A circle of people ostracizing another. This kind of behavior was usually the most effective at killing people without leaving a trace. A rich person's values weren't necessarily better than a poor person's. Things like values were never judged by age or wealth. But rich people often used money as a weapon. And some people indeed wanted to suck up to those who were rich. Such a phenomenon had existed since the beginning of time. That was why there were so many people helping Yao Jia to resist Shui Yaoyao. The longer this dragged on, the more embarrassed Shui Yaoyao would be. The fact that no one accepted her hug was an insult to one's self-esteem. Jiang Zhuo gripped his wine glass, his charming peach blossom eyes showing signs of turning cold. His good friend behind him wanted to say something, but for some reason, he took a step towards Shui Yaoyao. However, no one had expected that there would be someone faster than him. It was a tall and slender figure that appeared behind Shui Yaoyao. His short silver hair was messy, and there were still traces of snow on it. The black diamond earrings matched with the leather jacket only made the man look handsome and luxurious, with the fair skin of a vampire noble. Standing in front of a group of men in suits, he was one of a kind. It was because the figure was too handsome. Therefore, everyone couldn't help but turn around and look over. Shui Yaoyao felt someone tugging at her arm from behind, followed by a cold hug. The youngster's gentle and pleasant voice rang out warmly. I'm late because of the traffic jam. I was right behind you. Why didn't you invite me to hug you? Yao Yao wanted to cry. She really wanted to cry. She buried her face into the young man's shoulder, and the corners of her mouth lifted into a smile. With Highness Jiu around, there was nothing to be afraid of. Fu Jiu had always protected Yao Yao unconditionally. Moreover, she believed that things like protection were relative. When she was facing cyber violence, the girl in his arms was the first to speak. People would have many friends in their lifetime, but true friends. Chapter 473. As for the embrace of these two people, discussions immediately broke out. Look, isn't that the popular Spade Z in the esports circle? F***ck, I never expected my big spade to attend such a birthday party. Who's that person he's carrying? Girlfriend? Wait a minute, why do I find that girl familiar? She's my Yao Yao. What your Yao Yao? He's also playing hero, Supreme Alliance. Move aside, don't disturb my view of my idol. I want to see my big spade. The two of them seem to have a good relationship. They're hugging each other. What do you think? For some reason, I feel like they're a good match. It had to be said that such a scene was very beautiful. Under the light, the black earring on the young man's ear was still emitting a faint glow. He was handsome and flamboyant. Han Susu watched from the side. She was originally happy that the young man had appeared. But when she saw the youngster pull Yao Yao into his arms, her gaze turned hostile. However, no one noticed that apart from Han Susu, there was another person who clenched his fists as he watched this scene. It was none other than Jiang Zhua. Jiang Zhua's friend didn't even have time to retract the shock on his face. What did Jiang Zhua intend to do with that step? Fu Jiu noticed his gaze. She looked over and smiled. Young Master Jiang, we meet again. Jiang Zhua's attitude was much colder when he saw the youngster. He glanced at Yao Yao and replied with a faint mmh. Fu Jiu was standing next to Shui Yao Yao. She glanced around and smiled. Yao Yao is a girl. It's not a game to let her hug someone so casually. But young Master Jiang doesn't seem to mind that someone would play such a dirty game at his birthday party. Jiang Zhua narrowed his eyes. However, Yao Jia's expression changed because of the word vile. It's not up to you to decide if it's vile or not. Yao Yao, what's the meaning of this? Did you bring your friend here to cause trouble? Shui Yao Yao wanted to speak. Fu Jiu pulled her back and said emotionlessly, it's a misunderstanding. We are usually very busy playing hero, so we don't have time to mess around. Today, Yao Yao came just to give us a gift. After all, we are all from the Jiang family. But this lady, your surname doesn't seem to be Jiang, right? In Jiang family's territory, young Master Jiang can tolerate an outsider questioning his sister. Young Master Jiang has a good temper, but I'm different. Yao Yao is my teammate. Since no one here welcomes us, Yao Yao, where's the stuff you bought? Give it to young Master Jiang. Young Master Jiang is very generous, he won't mind if you leave early or not. There was a lot of content in this speech. There were so many that Jiang Zhua's gaze changed. He looked at Shui Yao Yao, his eyes cold. It was the first time Shui Yao Yao could look him in the eye. She had never owed Jiang Zhua anything. Even if she was delusional and used that kind of gaze to fall in love with this person. And every time, because he talked to her, she felt that she was different. If there was a chance. She wanted to tell Jiang Zhua, I only like you. If you don't like me, you can tell me. I will give up, even if the process of giving up is a little difficult. But I have never wanted to hinder you or take you away from anyone. I understand that liking someone is also a form of self-respect. Shui Yaoyao didn't say much and took out the gift. Happy birthday. These were the most ordinary words. Very polite. This way, no one would say that she and her mother were poor and uncultured. Chapter 474. Jiang Zhe didn't reach out for the gift, he just looked at Shui Yaoyao, his voice faint. Are you leaving early? Shui Yaoyao wasn't sure if he didn't mind that her gift wasn't expensive enough. Honestly speaking, her gift was indeed more expensive than what others had given him. For example, a luxury car or a luxury watch. There was no need for Shui Yaoyao to stay here. She wasn't suited for this kind of environment. Instead of being on guard against some people's despicable means, she might as well go to the internet cafe with Highness Jiu. The competition has already begun. I need to practice. Seeing that he didn't accept the gift, Shui Yaoyao turned and passed the gift to the receptionist beside her. Jiang Zhe's gaze turned extremely cold. Did you change your target again? His words successfully made Shui Yaoyao's back stiffen. At this moment, Fu Jiu curled up her thin lips and brought Shui Yaoyao over. The gift is here. Say goodbye to Auntie and leave. The competition is so busy, so you don't have to come here if you don't want to. With that, she lifted her eyes and looked deeply into Jiang Zhe's eyes. Young Master Jiang, we shall take our leave. Jiang Zhe didn't speak, his gaze deepening as he stared at their backs, his grip on the cup tighter. The people at the side could tell that Jiang Zhe was unhappy. But everyone thought it was because Shui Yaoyao wasn't generous enough. Hence, Jiang Zhe's smile disappeared. Yao Jia said from the side, birds of a feather flock together. The Fu family's young master doesn't seem to have a good reputation. When did Yao Yao hang out with such a person? Jiang Zhe, cheer up. It's good that these people aren't from our circle are gone. With them around, your birthday banquet will be even happier. Han Susu immediately spoke up. What bad reputation? Don't spout nonsense. I know my idol well. Yao Yao is only taking care of him because she's in the same team as him. At the end of the day, it's all Yao Yao's fault. She's clingy. The scene just now had already agitated Han Susu. She had never imagined that the youth would be so gentle to anyone. She could tolerate the youth being nice to Brother Qin. After all, they were two grown men. But he was actually good to a fat girl. Han Susu couldn't tolerate this. He was sure that Shui Yaoyao was trying to seduce him. She had seduced Big Brother Jiang in the past, but now she didn't even let her Prince Charming off. Why don't you take a look at yourself? So cheap. The more Han Susu thought about it, the darker her eyes became. She's trying to suck up to Fu Jiu again. I can tell as well. Yao Jia muttered disdainfully. Why are both mother and daughter so virtuous? Before she could finish her sentence, a muffled sound of glass shattering interrupted the soft music playing in the hall. In an instant, there was an unprecedented silence in the banquet. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound. Including Yao Jia. Jiang Zhe was still standing there, the cuffs of his white shirt stained with blood. He couldn't tell if it was red wine or blood. The wine glass was crushed in his palm. His face didn't change at all. Instead, his eyes were very deep as he looked at the girls in front of him. Ask them to leave. Young master. The receptionist was still hesitant. After all, they all had business dealings, not to mention that Miss Han was inside. Chapter 475. At that moment, everyone understood that young Master Jiang was really angry this time. Han Susu's face turned pale. Brother Jiang, are you saying that you're chasing me away? Jiang Zhe didn't speak but his attitude was obvious. Why? Han Susu's anger rose. Are you afraid of hurting our feelings? Jiang Zhe turned his head, his voice faint. Why? Because this is the Jiang family. When he said this, he glanced at Yao Jia. That glance made Yao Jia's body sway. It didn't affect the progress of the birthday party even if the 3 or 4 girls weren't asked out. But how could Han Susu take it lying down? She couldn't calm her anger. It was all because of that fat girl. It could be said that this was the scene Qin Mo saw when he entered. Han Susu seemed to have seen her savior. Brother Qin, did Brother Jiang have some bad luck to chase us out? Are you kidding me? We are doing it for his own good, helping him deal with his fat pig stepsister. What's wrong with that? Qin Mo listened to the cause and effect without a change in expression. In the end, he said faintly, the fat pig you mentioned is also a member of our Supreme Alliance. What do you mean? Han Susu widened her eyes. Qin Mo's gaze was faint. What I mean is, if I were Jiang Zhua, I would also ask you out. What happened to the manners the Han family taught you? After being disrespected twice in a row, Han Susu was so angry that her chest felt suffocated. Qin Mo didn't look at Han Susu again. Ever since they were young, he had never been interested in her. He was different from Jiang Zhua. Even if he remembered their past relationship, he wouldn't overdo it. That was why Han Susu was afraid of Qin Mo, he was too cold-blooded. After they left, the party went on as usual. Only those who were close to Jiang Zhua had gone upstairs. On such a day, blood couldn't be spilled. Hence, the bandaging had to be left to the brothers. When Qin Mo walked up, Jiang Zhua was still looking in a direction, his expression nonchalant. No one knew what he was thinking. When he saw Qin Mo, he smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. My sister seems to have taken a liking to your brother. How about it? Do you want to get married? Qin Mo looked at him, his expression indifferent. What about the other two? Who knows? Jiang Zhua played with the present in his hands, his gaze cold. You left early, does your team allow dating now? Qin Mo tilted his head and lit a cigarette. It was allowed in the past. Jiang Zhua arched a brow. What about the future? Puppy love isn't good for high school students. Qin Mo puffed out a smoke ring, his handsome side profile noble and indifferent. But can't you control your sister? Jiang Zhua smiled. You're the one who can't control your brother. A big part of his reason for coming here is to save the day. Qin Mo extinguished the cigarette in the ashtray, turned his face, and picked up the phone on the table. His voice was calm. It's getting late. Even if you aren't in the mood, you still have to go down to cut the cake. Jiang Zhua arched a brow. Qin Mo's expression was calm. Your attitude determines the attitude of the people around you towards Shui Yao Yao. If you don't mind, forget it. If you do, it's better to be more or less the same. Even if you can't accept Uncle Zhang's remarriage. When did you start to care about other people's matters? Jiang Zhua smiled. Chapter 476. As he spoke, he pressed his cell phone and made a call. The person on the other end of the line was none other than Manager Feng, who was drinking with a group of reporters. Qin Mo didn't say much, just a few words. Inform all the team members that in half an hour, there will be a training session at the top floor of the Qin group. Jiang Zhua lifted his eyebrows when he heard this. Was Qin Mo using official business for personal gain? At the cocktail party, the reporters saw Feng Yi pause and couldn't help asking, Boss Feng, what's wrong? Come, have another drink. As a manager known as a fox, Feng Yi smiled gently. Nothing, it's nothing. But in his heart, he was cursing, Almighty, why did you make such a call at this time? I'm going to the washroom. Feng Yi didn't put down his phone, holding it. After he walked out of the room, his expression changed instantly. Almighty, can you stop fooling around? There's only a day and a half off, and you still want everyone to train? At this time, they should have just met their beloved girl and are preparing to watch a movie of love. If this goes on, our Supreme Alliance will really become a monk team. Chin Mo stuffed one hand into his trouser pocket, his voice unchanged and indifferent. Call and inform. 5 words. Feng Yi lost his temper. But on second thought, it was easier to manage the team members without girlfriends. In fact, wasn't it because of this that he was always here? It was the same in every industry. When some people became famous, they would become chaotic. It wasn't like Feng Yi hadn't encountered any professional team members flirting with fans. Compared to other managers, at least he didn't have to worry about his team members' views on love. Because, all of them really had the feeling that they couldn't get married. But it was strange that there were so many fans. If Feng Yi had a deeper understanding, he wouldn't have found it strange. For example, some female juniors fans wanted to give Lin Feng something similar to a love letter on Christmas Eve. Hence, after seeing Yunhu at school, they wanted to ask him for help. Yunhu looked at her and suddenly laughed. It's not fair. It was the first time that the female juniors saw Yunhu laugh. In the law enforcement university, Yunhu was almost an unattainable existence. If there wasn't anyone else she could ask for help, the female junior wouldn't have the guts to trouble Yunhu. There was always a kind of person that you wanted to see, but you were afraid to see. At this moment, the junior blushed when she saw Yunhu's smile, her heart thumping furiously. He was really too handsome. That tall and straight figure and that handsome side profile made one's body heat up uncontrollably. What's unfair? Yunhu lowered his lids, his gaze deep. You're only giving it to Lin Feng and not me? Looking at the man's handsome appearance, the junior felt as if something had pierced through her heart. She immediately said, "This is for you." Yunhu chuckled, his lips turning cold. Isn't this for Lin Feng? I can make it up to Senior Lin in the future. The junior sister's cheeks were pink. There are 2 movie tickets in there. Senior brother, you have, before the beauty could finish her words. A figure jumped out from behind Yunhu and wrapped his arms around his neck. You're really a brother, waiting for me so late at night. Lin Feng was a slow-witted person. Chapter 477. That girl didn't expect Lin Feng to suddenly appear, and she was embarrassed. Yunhu was calm. No, she wanted to give you something, but when she saw me, she said she wanted to give it to me, so I accepted it. When Lin Feng heard this, he glanced in the direction of the girl. He had quite an impression of this person. It was said that she was very pure. However, it seemed like that wasn't the case. Then, are you guys making an appointment? Lin Feng raised his brows. Yunhu took out his phone and showed him the group message. Training. Group training? At this time? Lin Feng screamed. Does that fox Feng Yi have any humanity left? However, on second thought, training was good, it saved him the trouble of asking Yunhu to reject girls' dates. He had to remind Yunhu about this when there was no one else around. The girl blushed. Her heart, which had been pounding furiously, stopped when she saw Yunhu's emotionless side profile and Lin Feng's guarded gaze. He suddenly realized that he had done something wrong. He wanted to explain, but found that he couldn't. She originally thought that although Senior Lin was very good, Senior Yun was simply too domineering when compared to Senior Lin. They weren't even on the same level. That was why they decided to change their target at the last minute. However, Senior Yun's final smile was truly filled with mockery. She must have seen wrongly. After all, Senior Yun had just said that it was unfair. But Yunhu's next sentence shattered her fantasies. It's best to give it to the person who should have it. What did that mean? The girl wanted to clarify things. Lin Feng was one step ahead of her, dragging Yunhu away. When there were only 2 people left on the road, Lin Feng let out a long sigh. Old tiger, let me tell you. You don't have much contact with girls, so you don't understand how scheming they are. Just look at that girl. She chased after me before, and now she's chasing after you. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Such a fickle woman isn't worthy of you. So she chased you first. Yunhu's face was calm, but his tone sounded like he had just realized something. Lin Feng put his hand on his shoulder. I'm lying to your grandson. I definitely didn't mean to slander others. It's not that I don't believe you. Yunhu pretended to be deep in thought. I'm just wondering if she wants to get close to me through you. When Lin Feng heard that, he exclaimed, damn, that's definitely the case. There's no need for you to think about it anymore. There was a woman who did this to me before. Do you really think that I, Lin Feng, am a fool? Don't worry, in the future, if there's another woman who tries to get close to me, I'll definitely check before coming into contact with her. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to find a girlfriend? Yunhu asked. Lin Feng laughed. I'm so handsome, I'll find you sooner or later. Is that so? Yunhu's gaze deepened. Then I wish you all the best. This guy clearly had a face that was extremely intelligent. Actually, he wasn't that smart. Yunhu looked at the foggy Jiang city. He had already distanced himself from girls, so this sort of thing would probably be much less frequent in the future. As for a girlfriend, well, he could only think about it. Lin Feng was very serious, and he was prepared to have less contact with girls in the future. On the other hand, Fujiu furrowed her pretty eyebrows after receiving the news of the training. Yao Yao tilted her head. What? Nothing, Fujiu said, but she replied to Feng Yi's message. Chapter 478. Drank too much? You still have a stomachache? After Manager Feng saw this message, he immediately forwarded it to Qin Mo. The specific content was, Little Spade said you have a stomachache and are not suitable for training. Qin Mo glanced at his phone, his expression indifferent. Tell him that time is of the essence. Even if my stomach hurts, I will participate. This. Manager Feng's intuition told him that something was wrong. Moreover, Little Spade probably didn't know that the Almighty was the one who wanted everyone to train. Manager Feng simply didn't send a message. Instead, he made a phone call. Almighty, tell me the truth. Why do you want to train today? To prevent puppy love. With that, Qin Mo hung up the phone. It was because of the two people who walked out of the internet cafe. Fujiu and Shui Yao Yao didn't see Qin Mo at first. No one knew what they were talking about, but they were both smiling at each other. Until Fujiu sensed something and looked up. At the end of the corridor, Qin Mo took out a cigarette from the pack. He tilted his head and lit it. Then, he leaned against the wall and puffed out smoke. He played with the lighter in his hand and looked at them with the corners of his eyes raised. Fujiu didn't expect Qin Mo to show up here. Brother Mo, why are you? It's on the way. I came to pick you up. Qin Mo's voice was cold. The car is outside. Fujiu saw that his lips were a little pale and thought that his stomach was hurting badly. Are you really in such a hurry to have the training today? Qin Mo replied faintly and glanced at Yao Yao. Otherwise, I wouldn't have interrupted your date. Shui Yao Yao. Why did she feel that Almighty Qin's eyes were filled with coldness just now? Obviously, the young man couldn't sense it. Because there was only one thing in Fujiu's mind, and that was how to relieve the Almighty's pain. Moreover, Qin Mo would never show his cold side in front of Fujiu. Qin Mo knew very well that anyone who was in the rebellious phase of adolescence, they all hated to have their feelings interfered with. Psychology once said that it was often best not to let the other party notice that you were interfering with them. Otherwise, even if there was nothing to begin with, there would still be something because of the rebellion. Qin Mo looked at the youngster's face, his brows furrowing into a deep frown. Why did he choose such a troublesome fellow as his younger brother? Fujio sat in the car and saw that the man didn't look well. She leaned over and asked in a low voice, "Does it hurt?" It wasn't a stomachache, but Chin Mo felt that the current situation was pretty good. He looked at the youngster without retorting or saying a word. His face was thin and his lips were pale. Fujio looked at him and let out a long sigh. She naturally reached out and touched the Almighty's head. She said with a smile, "Don't cry. Move your claws away." Chin Mo laughed in anger. The chauffeur and Shui Yaoyao's back stiffened. Only young Master Jiu dared to be like this with Almighty Qin. They trained together on Christmas Eve. Only Supreme Alliance was like this. However, since they had decided to do the training, everyone was very serious. Fatty even took out the information that he had gathered and shared it. These are the 3 teams that we are going to face next. They are all quite strong. Also, Xiangnan's regional competition has ended. There's no doubt that Xiangnan is number 1 again. Moreover, they didn't send all their main players. It's obvious that they are very strong. Xiangnan. As long as this name was mentioned, the team's atmosphere would turn cold. That was the person they wanted to defeat the most. It had been 3 years. A whole 3 years. Because they had won before, their eyes drooped when they heard this name. It wasn't just Lin Feng and Yun Hu. Even the others were reminding themselves that this was their last chance. Their target was the national champion. Fatty's news probably gave everyone pressure. Fujio watched as everyone started to get busy. Lin Feng's hand speed wasn't fast enough, so he was still practicing. And Feng Shang seemed to be doing something. He actually started to pedal on the World Channel, saying that he wanted to collect diamond shards, probably to make equipment. Christmas Eve. This was basically how Supreme Alliance spent their time. Perhaps this was how it was at this age. Love was never the only thing. Compared to love, it was more enviable to fight side by side with each other. The night sky outside the window was dark and gloomy. The smog in Jiang City had never dissipated. Fujio was the one who drank the most water, because her throat felt uncomfortable. Perhaps it was because of this body. She didn't have this problem in the past. It was said that serious people were the most beautiful. It wasn't just this group of male gamers, even Yao Yao was the same. Everyone's computer screen was lit up. Fujio sat in the middle with her companions on her left and right. She had never been like this before. Because of hackers. She never had friends. Hackers were so mysterious because of their aloofness. They existed, but in reality, they had a different face. Even if they had family and friends, no one would know what these hackers did at night. So in essence, Fujio was lonely. Except for Hoshino. If it wasn't for that time in Tokyo, Fujio wouldn't be hiding things in her heart. On the day of her rebirth. It wasn't that she didn't want to contact Hoshino. But in the end, she didn't. People had to look forward. This had always been her principle. Compared to helping her do things that couldn't be exposed. Now Hoshino's identity was more beautiful. The clacking sound of the keyboard could be very hypnotic at times. When Fujio raised her eyes again, Lin Feng was already leaning on Yunhu's shoulder, and he was about to fall asleep. But the Almighty was sitting next to her. She didn't know when he had put on a pair of black-rimmed glasses, but that only made him look extremely handsome and intelligent. Probably because Fujio looked at him for too long. Chin Mo tilted his head. His dark eyes seemed to be smiling. Do I look good? Good. Fujio's peach blossom eyes seemed to be smiling. Brother Mo, looking at you makes me want to take you home. Does your stomach still hurt? Did you take the hot water bag I gave you? Chin Mo also knew that this guy's habit of flirting couldn't be changed. Looking at the young man's concerned expression, he raised his eyebrows and was about to get closer. Feng Yi came over with a big bag of takeaway. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit. Get up, there's supper and porridge to fight against the smog radiation. Porridge to fight against the smog radiation. What's that? Fu Jiu tilted her head and asked Qin Mo. Lin Feng woke up with a start, and his expression was very bad. It's the dark cuisine cooked by Fox Feng himself. Hey. What are you hiding for, Lin Feng? Feng Yi pulled him over. Come, taste my love as a manager. With Lin Feng as a reference, Fu Jiu very cleverly glanced at the porridge in the bag. All she saw was a green sticky substance. Chapter 479. The love supper brought by Manager Feng successfully caused a lot of wailing. But it was really good for the body. According to him, the porridge was made with celery leaves and spinach leaves, and there were also simmered mint leaves in it. After hearing that recipe, Fu Jiu felt that she should keep Feng Yi away from the kitchen. Baby Feng, next time stop your brother, do you hear me? Feng Shang had just been forced by his brother to finish the porridge. With a bitter face, he said, I can't stop him. He likes to cook. Fu Jiu. An esports agent actually liked to cook. The main reason was that the food he made tasted terrible. Why did he like to cook? But Feng Yi was very confident. The taste is good, right? Fu Jiu thought to herself that no one had died yet. However, Lin Feng's reaction was bigger. He rushed into the bathroom right after he finished drinking. Only the Almighty was spared. He only said 3 words to Feng Yi, my stomach hurts. Feng Yi's expression was indescribable. Shameless, too shameless, using the same excuse so many times. Qin Mo, on the other hand, had a strong aura and was very calm. Feng Yi felt that the Almighty was too shameless and didn't say anything else. He started to talk about the main point of today's visit. The second match of the regional competition will begin tomorrow afternoon. This time, there won't be any time to rest. Other than testing everyone's skills, there's also a requirement on your stamina. To prevent eye inflammation, other than the regular medication, I will be following you and cooking porridge for you. As for the rest, I believe you've heard from Fatty about Xiangnan's results. 2 of their main players haven't been on the field. It's best if Little Spade and young Master Qin don't play as much as possible. They'll be the secret weapons against Xiangnan in the National League because no one knows how strong Xiangnan's lineup is. My idol and Almighty Qin aren't going to fight? Feng Shang asked worriedly. What if we lose? Feng Yi glanced at his brother. If we lose like this, we won't be able to win in the National League. Okay. Fu Jiu's voice was clear. She stood up with one hand in her pocket and a smile on her face. Feng Yi knew that Fu Jiu understood what he meant. The reason was simple. Even if there were experts in the regionals, this was just a regionals. Many teams were saving their strength for the National League. For example, Xiangnan. It had won the top 3 in the regional competition without its main force. Without Fu Jiu and Qin Mo, Supreme Alliance would lose. The difference was already very obvious. Indeed, there was no need for him to participate in the national competition. Everyone thought of this relationship. Especially Yun Hu, who was smart and had the bravery of a soldier. Don't worry, we can win. Yun Hu is right. Feng Yi held on to his suit jacket. After the regional competition, it'll be Supreme Alliance's anniversary celebration. I've already bought tickets to the ski resort and a hotel suite. If we win beautifully, we'll spend the new year at the hot spring villa. There'll also be the masquerade ball that you've been looking forward to. Hearing the words, masquerade party, the team members were excited. There was only one person. No one knew what Lin Feng was thinking. He clenched his fist and said fiercely, this year, I must not draw the worst lot. You need to draw lots for a masquerade ball. Fu Jiu raised her eyebrows. Lin Feng wanted to say something to the youth. Suddenly, Qin Mo's eyes flashed. He pulled the youngster's collar over and said faintly, continue practicing your hand speed. Chapter 480. The next day. The regional competition continued. This time, Supreme Alliance's opponent was the former top 3 team in the province, Outyin team. This was the reason why Fatty said they wouldn't have an easy time. At the same time, they were also a friendly team of Yunzhong. In terms of strength, they were indeed no match for Yunzhong team. But everyone knew that the previous match could be won so easily. First, it was because Yunzhong team underestimated their opponent. Second, it was because both Fu Jiu and Qin Mo were on the field. Today's match. Those two weren't in the lineup. The 1v1 began. Everyone thought it would be Spade Z, and even the shoutcaster thought that Supreme Alliance should continue to win with the momentum of the previous match. Unexpectedly, it was Yin Wuyao who came for the 1v1. Outyin saw this and laughed coldly. What do you mean? Are you looking down on us? He thinks he's great just because he beat Yunzhong team. Monkey, let these people know that our Outyin team isn't someone they can treat like this. It's ridiculous for an old general to take the lead. No problem, it's a piece of cake to deal with this uncle. Just like what Feng Shang had been worried about, this match wasn't going to be easy. Yin Wuyao didn't make any progress other than taking a kill in the first match. Fu Jiu looked up at the time on the screen and frowned. Uncle, we have to end this match as soon as possible. Because the opponent was an assassin-type player who was good at sneak attacks and fast, the longer the match dragged on, the harder it would be for Yin Wuyao. Fu Jiu's speculation was verified when Yin Wuyao lost his first life. The opponent was good at stealing towers and attacking all the way. In order not to end the match early, Yin Wuyao could only return to the city to heal. That kind of situation made people's hearts ache. Sometimes, the people in the match couldn't see it as clearly as the bystanders. Was Supreme Alliance really going to lose this time? Just as people were thinking about this, Yin Wuyao jumped over the tower and killed his opponent, returning to the city with low HP. Fu Jiu saw this and her eyes lit up. Uncle realized it. Realized what? Feng Shang didn't understand. But it was obvious that Yin Wuyao's fighting style was different. He didn't attack the tower, but hid in the bushes and began to hunt. Because his opponent was fast, Yin Wuyao first stunned him, then killed him, turning the situation around. This 1v1 match was without a doubt the longest one of them all. In the end, Yin Wuyao's HP was dangerously low. His opponent had used up his last life. If they were any later, Supreme Alliance's city would have fallen. It could only be said that it was really hard to tell who would win and who would lose in this competition. But according to the rules, Supreme Alliance won. Yin Wuyao removed his headphones and walked towards his teammates. Fu Jiu glanced sideways and passed him a cigarette. Thanks for your hard work. It's important to have a good start. Yin Wuyao took the cigarette but didn't light it. He held it in his mouth. I wish I was as young as you guys. Fu Jiu laughed and said, there are benefits to being old. For example, you have rich experience and can adapt to changing situations. I believe this is why the Almighty asked you to fight the 1v1. With that, Yin Wuyao glanced at Qin Mo, his voice low. We have a good captain. Yes, we have a good captain. He wasn't like the other teams, who looked down on veterans and looked down on rookies. He gave everyone enough trust. He treated his teammates equally. This was the Almighty. Chapter 481. With Yin Wuyao leading the way, no matter how difficult the following matches were, no one was worried. He fought steadily, without underestimating his opponent or having stage fright. The shoutcaster added, north of Yin Mountain's victory is very important. With his persistence, Supreme Alliance's aura has returned. That's right. Another shoutcaster laughed. It seems like even an old general has to meet a captain who knows how to use people. Everyone understood. Supreme Alliance's order of appearance had always been arranged by Qin Mo. Someone once said that when Qin Mo wasn't in the preparation area, he was Supreme Alliance's coach. But when he wore the headphones and operated the computer, it was another role. Supreme Alliance was able to keep their composure. A large part of the reason was because the person sitting there was Qin Mo. Next was the 2v2. Shui Yaoyao didn't even know how she moved the mouse. All she wanted was to kill another person or attack another defense tower. When it was over, she realized that she had really won. Her fingers were still trembling, and her heart was still beating. For the first time, without Highness Jiu's help, she won. In the distance, Fu Jiu, who was in the audience seats, curved her lips into a smile and mouthed, "Beautiful." Perhaps, this was what they were after with their disdainful and mocking gazes. Esports taught us to be brave. And friends taught us to trust. The celebratory atmosphere had never been so intense. As the manager, Feng Yi watched this scene with a smile. Except for his own brother, Feng Shang. What he saw was more about that group of guys getting along. Who would have thought? Some of them didn't even know what esports was a month ago. But now, every single one of them was a trustworthy player. Perhaps this year, they could really win the national championship. Brother. Feng Shang ran over with a flushed face. Did you see that? I won. Feng Yi ruffled his hair. I saw it. Not bad. Take advantage of this momentum and continue. Okay. His eyes were filled with yearning, as if he could see the future shining. Fu Jiu hit the back of the chair with one hand, the corner of her mouth lifted. Just as she was about to speak, she suddenly looked to the left. Qin Mo lifted his brows. What? Nothing. Fu Jiu's eyes were still on the emergency exit. Was she seeing things? How could that person be here, little spade? Why are you still sitting there? Hurry up and come down to celebrate. Lin Feng interrupted Fu Jiu's thoughts. Fu Jiu curled her lips up into a smile. She held onto the railing with one hand and jumped up. Her action was so cool that the surrounding girls almost fainted. Lin Feng was stunned and gave him a thumbs up. Good skills. Qin Mo glanced over and then looked towards the emergency exit. It was empty. There was nothing there. What was this guy looking at just now? The regional competition lasted for 5 consecutive days. As a dark horse, Supreme Alliance won all the way. This move was a slap in the face to the analysts who had made predictions on Weibo. But none of this mattered to Fu Jiu. The key was to draw lots for the masquerade ball. Come on. You should wish yourself good luck first. Lin Feng held a bamboo tube with a solemn expression. The bamboo tube was filled with wooden sticks. Fu Jiu thought to herself that it was just a masquerade party, and she didn't need to wish him good luck. She was so handsome that she could play any role, right? Lin Feng said meaningfully, "Don't blame me for not reminding you." Fu Jiu didn't care. She picked the one in the middle with a faint smile. Then, she flipped it over. There were only 2 words on it. Crossdressing, asterisk 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 aside, no charge beyond 1,000 words. It's been 3.5 months since I started writing. Thank you, beauties, for accompanying me for so long. I've encountered many things during this period, such as plagiarism, reposting, and other infringements, as well as the incomprehension in the comments section. I'm lucky to have you all with me all the way. Chapter 482. Female, cross-dressing. How could there be such a strange word? Fu Jiu raised her eyebrows heavily, feeling that there was something wrong with her eyes. Wrong draw, I'll draw again. What do you mean wrong draw? It's this one. Lin Feng smiled widely. Little spade, you're so lucky. In the past, your brother was always the luckiest. This year, it's your turn. What did he mean? Was it really cross-dressing? Fu Jiu's mouth froze. What kind of masquerade ball would require people to wear cross-dressing? My condolences. Lin Feng seemed to see himself in the past. He reached out his left hand and patted Fu Jiu's shoulder. Child, you're still young. But think about it, how many men have the chance to wear cross-dressing, especially so openly? Be happy. Fu Jiu looked sideways. Master Lin. Go ahead. Fu Jiu chuckled. When you're comforting me, can you keep your molars in first? It's too obvious that you're gloating. Lin Feng was still laughing, not caring about what Fu Jiu said. After comforting her, he jumped over to the team members, and his handsome face was full of joy. Guess. What did little Spade draw? Shui Yaoyao held her face, and her eyes were full of yearning. Vampire aristocracy. With Highness Zhou's skin tone and silver hair, if she wore a 19th-century evening gown, she would definitely amaze everyone. Feng Shang was also trying hard to think. Demon Deacon? No, neither. Lin Feng shook his finger. Guess again. Yunhu walked over at this time, and his voice was normal. Seeing how happy you are, could it be that little Spade drew the lot you drew last year? Hu, you're so smart. Lin Feng pointed at him and said in a loud voice, that's right, it's that lucky draw, cross-dressing. Cross-dressing? In an instant. Not only the old team members, but also Feng Shang and Yin Wuyao. Both Feng Shang and Yin Wuyao looked in Fu Jiu's direction immediately. He wanted to smoke a cigarette, but because he was too shocked, he did not even hold the cigarette in his mouth and dropped it on the ground. There was not a single person who wasn't shocked. Fu Jiu still wanted to say something, but when she looked up, she saw that the Almighty had just finished dealing with the company's matters and was standing in front of the door in a suit. His body was excessively slender, and he probably heard Lin Feng's words. He leaned against the wall, raised his eyebrows at Fu Jiu, and smiled faintly. Cross-dressing? Fu Jiu wanted to open her mouth again. Lin Feng interrupted her decisively. Little Spade, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to find excuses, like you're not feeling well, you have something to do tomorrow, or your stomach hurts. I used these excuses last year. Just accept your fate. Our brothers won't laugh at you. Fu Jiu. Can't you be more expressive when you say that? However, this time, Lin Feng blocked all the ways she could use to escape. She had to think of a way to reject this alternative masquerade party. But the Almighty didn't give the young man a chance. His gaze was indifferent. Tomorrow, everyone must attend as requested. If you don't come, you'll have to bear the consequences. Captain is right. Attend as requested. Lin Feng patted Fu Jiu's shoulder again. Fu Jiu finally experienced the feeling that the Almighty had when he wanted to throw someone out of the window. Shui Yaoyao stood at the side, and her eyes were full of worry. Cross-dressing was really dangerous for Highness Zhou. Chapter 483. Lin Feng blocked with his hand. Yaoyao, you can't do that. Our Supreme Alliance has rules. You have to follow whatever you draw, right, Captain? Hearing that, Fu Jiu looked at Qin Mo with a serious look, which meant, Almighty, it's time to show your brother's true colors. Qin Mo looked at the young man for a moment. Just when Fu Jiu thought things would change for the better, the man smiled. The man smiled, looking especially handsome. Yes. Fu Jiu. What happened to Brother Khan? Qin Mo slowly took in the youngster's gloomy expression, then looked at Shui Yaoyao, who was anxious to help the youngster out. His original intention of letting the youngster off the hook was reduced by a lot. He took a step forward, his voice calm but oppressive. Perform well, and I'll personally pick you up tomorrow. Don't even think about running away, understand? Did he mean that she had to participate? Fu Jiu raised her eyebrows. Just in case, she gave him a heads up first. You can choose not to run away, but Brother Mo, let me tell you, I'm not like Lin Feng. I've never had the experience of dressing up as a girl, don't worry, I won't despise you. Qin Mo's tone made Fujio realize that she couldn't avoid dressing up as a girl. Lin Feng waited for Qin Mo to finish and immediately shouted, "Little Spade, I've only done it twice, okay? 2 times isn't considered experience." Fujio said casually, "No wonder you're the team beauty." As a man who thought he was, Lin Feng touched his heart, calmed down, and smiled handsomely. "Little Spade, I can totally understand why you don't like everyone. That's how I felt back then. Sigh, I understand how unpleasant it is for a man to be forced to be a prostitute, no, to be forced to be a woman. But I still need to provide you with some props." "What props?" Fujio unwrapped a lollipop and held it in her mouth casually. "Aren't they just costumes?" Lin Feng looked at her as if she had never experienced the big world. He lowered his voice and said, "Some props are more important than costumes." Fujio said casually. Now there were only 2 words in her mind. Cross-dressing, cross-dressing. Why would she care about props? "Hey, don't go." Lin Feng lowered his head. "Give me your address, I'll get someone to send the props to your house." "Listen to Senior, at this masquerade ball, the more you look like yourself, the less people will be able to recognize you. The chances of losing face will also be lower." Fujio chuckled. "Brother Lin, who doesn't know that I'm going to dress up as a girl after your announcement? The members of the team don't count. The main thing is that there will be some fans attending the masquerade ball." Lin Feng leaned over. "Don't say that I don't want to teach you. When the time comes, just insist that you're a fan, understand? So it could be like this." It seemed like her brother Lin was also someone who could provide ideas at times. Furthermore, it was a masquerade ball, and they could wear masks. Even if he wore women's clothing, he could still hide it. The more Fujio thought about it, the more her smile deepened. Brother Lin is indeed reliable. This is a great idea. Of course, who is your brother Lin? Lin Feng also looks good when he's proud. That's why these props are especially important. Whether or not a disguise depends entirely on them. What are these props referring to? Fujio had a bad feeling about this. Chapter 484. 34D. Collagen Water Ball. Chest. When these words were put together, anyone could guess what they meant. Fujio's fingers paused. Then, she jumped down from the wooden table and sucked on her lollipop, looking like a handsome hedonist. "Brother Lin, I just want to ask you one thing. When you bought these things, did no one look at you as a pervert?" Lin Feng's face turned red as he denied. Yunhu said lightly, "No, but uncle and auntie found out and thought he had a fetish for cross-dressing." Fujio. That was worse than being thought of as a pervert. With this relationship, Fujio made a wise choice. "I refuse to accept these props." "Refuse?" Lin Feng smiled when he heard that. "Little Spade, you can't do this. Where's your sincerity in cross-dressing? Don't try to fool us with some pants. After the ball ends tomorrow, we have to send photos to the team group. There's a small gathering after midnight. You can't wear something that doesn't pass." Fujio smiled after hearing that. "Don't worry, I'll definitely pass." Not to mention that she was a woman, she was good at disguising. Since it was a masquerade ball, it wasn't a problem for her. Qin Mo had been on the phone. Now that he was done, he glanced at the youngster and raised his eyebrows. So confident. He thought that this guy would beg him. This way, he could make some corresponding conditions, such as staying away from girls, especially Shui Yao Yao, and keeping an appropriate distance. But it turned out that a certain someone was not enlightened in some aspects. He was quite happy when someone asked to change the lot. He didn't think of asking him for help. Since that was the case, he wanted to see how a certain someone would hide in cross-dressing. At that time, Qin Mo didn't realize that he was like this because he cared. But every time he saw Fujio and Shui Yao Yao looking at each other, his eyes would turn cold, Night fell, and fog started to form in Jiang City again. It was better in the city. Once they were out of the city, in the direction of the high-speed rail station, people were walking in a haze. Everyone was wearing masks, as if they were filming a Resident Evil movie. Among them stood a tall and slender figure. He was the only one who wasn't wearing a mask, so he was particularly eye-catching. His handsome facial features were exposed outside, so the people who got on the bus couldn't help but take another look at him. That person was holding a phone with one hand, as if he was talking on the phone. His voice could be vaguely heard. So she was from Tokyo. What a good temperament. Haven't you been learning languages recently? Can you understand what he is saying? Probably. He seems to have said that he's going to stay here for a while and won't be going back for a while. He said that he has something to do and will meet here. What are you talking about? Did you hear wrong? No, that's what he said. And it sounds like he's looking for someone, huh? Wait, where's the handsome guy? The contralto voice was still echoing in his ears, but Hoshino tossed it further and further away until he couldn't hear it anymore. That's right, that figure was Hoshino. Chapter 485. Hoshino narrowed his eyes. No matter what, he still felt that all the verified accounts posting the same message for no reason was very similar to Z's style. And he had already inquired about the hackers in China. So far, no organization had taken responsibility for this, which meant that they didn't do it. As a result, his suspicions deepened. You could say that he was lying to himself, or that he was delusional, but this definitely had something to do with Z. But where on earth was that person? Lincheng? Baocheng? Jincheng? Or Jiang City? A province in China was bigger than the capital of Tokyo, not to mention such a densely populated city. It wasn't easy to find one person. So far, he only had one clue, and that was that Z was very likely in the esports circle. Otherwise, she wouldn't have intervened in this matter. So he wouldn't give up. Maybe he should go to the national competition. It shouldn't be long. Hoshino looked up at the foggy city. On the way from the Qin group to the Fu family's house, Shui Yaoyao didn't go home immediately. Instead, she walked with Fu Jiu. Your Highness Jiu, are you really going to dress as a girl? Will it be bad for you? Shui Yaoyao's worries weren't unreasonable. After all, Fu Jiu still had secrets to keep. Fu Jiu had one hand in her pocket. She was smiling, but she looked very cunning. It's not good, but since it's a masquerade ball, it won't be bad to the point of danger. I'll send you a message, and you can cover for me. Lin Feng said a lot. As long as you dress up well, it will save a lot of trouble. What do you need me to do? Shui Yaoyao asked nervously. Fu Jiu rubbed her chin and said, try to divert everyone's attention. You can bring a friend with a similar figure. He should be able to buy some time for me. We're not going together. Shui Yaoyao didn't understand. Won't that help you? How could she cover for him if they were too far away? Fu Jiu smiled faintly, and her eyes sparkled. She said slowly, as if this wasn't the first time she had done something like this. No, disguise is all about the first impression. Everyone in the team will definitely think that I will go with you. After all, this is my first time wearing women's clothes. No man will look natural in women's clothes for the first time, so he will definitely find a companion. Lin Feng was probably recognized because he was with Yunhu everywhere he went in the past. That's why we'll enter separately and split up the time. The person you brought with you should be studied by them for a while. Shui Yaoyao didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt that when the word disguise was mentioned, the young man in the night looked like a vampire noble who had just woken up from the darkness. He was mysterious and evil, his side profile was handsome and fair, and even his whole body was covered with a darkness that could make people fall. It was as if the young man was born this way. On the contrary, she usually hid far too many things. Why do I have such a feeling? Shui Yaoyao looked at Fu Jiu in front of her in a daze. She didn't know what to say. The young man noticed her gaze. He turned his head and smiled, which was as warm as the spring sun. Chapter 486. But there was one thing that was rather strange. Highness Jiu seemed to be very good at disguising himself. Even some people could guess what they were thinking. This was too smart. Could a hacker be this smart? Fu Jiu knew that Shui Yaoyao was confused, but she didn't plan to say anything. After the National League ended, the Fu family would undergo another change of ownership. When that time came, she would definitely return to the Fifth Avenue after settling everything here. It was not suitable for anyone to know about her past. She wasn't sure if it was because of the shadow she saw today, but Fu Jiu was thinking too much about the past. She was different from everyone else in the Supreme Alliance, and she couldn't rely on her game to support herself. She had her own beliefs, and that belief could only continue after she regained her identity as a hacker. Therefore, she would leave this place sooner or later. Even though he was reluctant. He had to do what he had to do. Fu Jiu looked in Shui Yaoyao's direction again, reached out her hand, and rubbed her head with a smile. Don't worry, it's just women's clothing, it's not like I've never worn it before. What about Almighty Qin? Shui Yaoyao said in a low voice, I feel that Almighty Qin's observation skills are too strong. Fu Jiu thought to herself that he was more than just strong, he was not just a little bit stronger. Tomorrow, I'll find an excuse to go there first. As long as you help me stall for time, I'll send a few pictures to the team chat. If we don't meet face to face, it should be much less dangerous. Fu Jiu's analysis was right. At this time, the entire team was thinking about how to catch her tomorrow. With Lin Feng leading the way, he said, I have experience doing this. When the time comes, you must keep an eye on Sister Yaoyao. Those two have a good relationship, so they will definitely appear together. Sister Yaoyao is easy to recognize, understand? Understood. Every member of the team was in high spirits. Every year at the New Year's Eve ball, they looked forward to this moment the most. Yunhu didn't say anything, but he found it strange. Why did Little Spade pick the cross-dressing one out of so many? He reached for the bamboo tube on Lin Feng's table and casually took one. There were only 2 words written on the wooden stick, women's clothing. He smoked another one. Still no. Yunhu didn't take the 3rd one. Instead, he turned to Lin Feng. Who gave you this bamboo tube? It wasn't that he didn't suspect Lin Feng, but he didn't think Lin Feng was smart enough to do such a thing. As expected, Lin Feng was still laughing. Why? Oh, it's a bamboo tube. Captain gave it to me after the draw. Yunhu instantly understood. There were only 3 words in his mind, no wonder. He lifted his eyes and looked at the figure who was still smoking. Their captain had a calm expression on his face, as if he didn't care at all that someone knew that he had done something to the bamboo tube. It had to be said that the captain's shamelessness was growing with each passing year. Subsequently, Qin Mo walked over and tossed a cigarette to Yunhu. The two of them found a quiet place and puffed out smoke rings. Qin Mo's voice was calm and emotionless. You should keep the bamboo tube to yourself. Yunhu had always been a man of few words, but at this moment, he couldn't help but ask, Captain, do you want to see Spade cross-dressing? If that was the case, it wasn't impossible for Spade to chase after someone. No. Qin Mo flicked the cigarette butt and said slowly, I just thought that guy would come and beg me. Chapter 487. Lin Feng was still shouting over there. Oh yes, I have to hurry home and pack the props for Little Spade. I want to see it as a gift for him as soon as he comes tomorrow. The New Year's masquerade. Everyone seemed to be looking forward to it. Besides the members of the team, there were also some fans online. There weren't many opportunities to get such a chance. Only their true fans would be invited to the banquet. And all the expenses of the ball would be provided by the Chin group. As long as you were there, you could celebrate the new year with your esports idol. This had always been a special case for the Chin group. Of course, there would be live broadcasts on online platforms. This was good for the development of the Supreme Alliance and was also a benefit for the fans. Everyone was happy to see it. But there was one thing. Almighty Chin might not necessarily appear at the masquerade. After all, he had to attend many business meetings on New Year's Eve. But even this couldn't stop the enthusiasm of the fans who wanted to participate in this activity. He might not necessarily appear, but there was still a chance. Moreover, someone said that even if Almighty Chin didn't appear, there was still Big Spade. So the atmosphere of online registration was unusually high. When the deadline ended at midnight, the number of registrations had exceeded 1 million. But not everyone could come to the scene. They also had to be screened. Manager Feng had been busy dealing with this matter. How could Han Susu and her group miss such a ball? She first spent a lot of money, but because she didn't pay attention to the team, she wasn't selected. In the end, she found Feng Yi through her brother and asked for 3 tickets. Feng Yi politely refused at first, but seeing that Han Susu's attitude was more extreme, he didn't want to agitate her because of these 2 tickets. Han Susu had been spoiled since she was young and couldn't tolerate being rejected. In her impression, if she spent money, the other party should agree and like her. Han Susu was still a student. It wasn't that students weren't good. It was just that some were more troublesome than adults when faced with it. Because they could turn from a fan to an anti-fan at any time. Not a fan to a fan. And people like Han Susu hadn't fully matured their values. Feng Yi didn't say much to her. Instead, he said to her brother, "Young Master Han, you know that our ball is a celebration for the Supreme Alliance. We want to celebrate the new year with our fans. If possible, please be quiet when Miss Han arrives." Feng Yi's attitude had always been gentle. But those words made Han Susu's brother blush. What his sister had been doing recently was indeed a little out of line. "Don't worry, I'll go with her." "That's good. Don't go overboard. It's not the right time for Supreme Alliance to start a feud." Han Susu didn't realize her own problem. After leaving the Chin Group Club, she sneered. Although the Feng family isn't bad, it's still a business. "Brother, why are you so polite to Feng Yi? He's just a worker for Brother Chin." Han Susu's brother once again wondered why he had such a sister. He took a deep breath and said, "Susu, if you still think this way, give me the ticket. You don't have to go to the masquerade ball. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.